Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Dating Game with Troy Francis. Myself, Troy Francis, dating coach, been in the business for over a decade, helping guys all over the planet to improve their outcomes with dating in the modern dating arena, which, let's face it, is pretty tricky. It's a pretty wild terrain out there. And what we do on this channel and on this show is break down current dating trends. We'll look at what's going on out there, try to make sense of it, and most importantly of all, try and figure out what is the best way forward for you if you're a guy watching this and you want to get better with women but get better outcomes, hotter girls, better relationships, or if you're a woman and you're looking for that archetypal high value man, what are the strategies that you need to employ in today's dating marketplace? So with all that being said, please do hit subscribe to the channel. If you've got any comments or questions, put them into the chat. Super chats are available now and very gratefully received. Thank you for the support so far. Now, we've already got Marriage Causes Divorce has donated £2. So thank you very much for that. And he says Jay Waller's YouTube channel has been deleted, RIP, or RIP RP, in fact. And then Christian Hernandez says RIP Jay Waller. This is the first I've heard of this. I don't know why. I wonder why that is. If anyone's got any insight onto that, if anyone's got any idea why that might be, put it in the chat, because obviously, yeah, I mean, I would have thought of anybody. I mean, Jay Waller is, his message seemed to be fairly kind of self-improvement based, really, like masculinity, self-improvement. It didn't seem to be particularly toxic or anything like that. He's always had this very gentlemanly side to him. So I wonder what it was that he did wrong that the YouTube gods chose to do that, but I guess we'll find out in due time. Anyway, so what we're going to be doing today is not talking about that, but we are going to be looking at an episode of the Whatever podcast that came out, I guess it was Monday. It was a couple of days ago. And the reason I wanted to look at this is twofold, basically. Partly because Pixie's on it, and I'm friends with Pixie. I've known her for a while. Pixie, everyone's favorite annoying progressive who comes on all these shows and triggers everybody and causes lots of arguments. So she's on there. So I want to have a look at what she has to say. Her friend Erin is on there as well, Straighterade, who I also know. And on top of that, we've also got everybody's favorite tradcon father figure, Charlie Kirk, in the house as well. So it's quite a big show. So I thought it'd be cool just to have a look at it and break it down, see if there's some interesting nuggets that we can pull out of it, which there definitely are. They get into quite a lot of interesting topics. The whole thing lasts 7 hours. So spoiler alert, I'm not going to be sitting here for 7 hours talking about this. Charlie's on for about 3 hours. So we'll have a look at the bit while he's on. I didn't really watch much beyond that anyway, but we'll look at the bit when he's on and we'll break down some of the things that they choose to talk about. As always, any comments, any questions, stick them in the chat and we will get to them as we go through. So Christian says on Jay Waller, he tweeted out what YouTube sent him. It was vague and generic, which is unfortunately is often the case. Anyway, without further ado, let's have a look at the Whatever podcast. So here we go. Let's get into it and see what we have to say. Anybody got any thoughts on this? If you've seen it, let me know. Write in the chat, and we will get into this. It's just quite interesting because obviously, there's this whole conversation going on with the tradcons, the Christ pill and all that kind of stuff. Oh, and actually, I'll tell you what. Before we even do that, apologies. Before we even do that, let's just actually have a look at something else because I actually did a video about Charlie Kirk a few weeks ago, right? Because Charlie Kirk, if you don't know, is the founder and CEO of Turning Point USA, which is a big conservative sort of lobbying group, I suppose you could call them. And amongst other things, he's got obviously big YouTube presence. He's got his own show that he does, I think, daily, like 3-hour show. He's a speaker, he's a thinker, he's a conservative activist, very prominent figure in that sphere. And they also organize this thing called Amfest USA. Now, if you were watching this show a few weeks ago, you would have seen me ripping the proverbial piss out of some of the Amfest 2023 speakers because there was some pretty simpy stuff being said. And let's just remind ourselves of what Mr. Kirk, who did the keynote speech, was saying. So let's have a look at this first before we get into whatever.
Things that I want to make sure I mention. If you're a young person here and you say, boy, you know, what do I want to do for my life? Honestly, you should get married as young as possible and have as many kids as possible. Period.
There you go, right, period. There's no equivocation. There's no sort of like, oh, you know, but you might want to be a little bit careful about this or that. You know, you might want to just be a little bit concerned. It's just, period. This is what you got to do. And if you don't, you're a cuck.
Reject the siren song of modernity. Now, some parents are probably, ooh, I don't like that, you know, they should be.
Reject the siren song of modernity. Go against the grain. Sorry, this is a little bit meta, isn't it? Because now we've got me commenting on someone else's video, which is even more meta than what I was talking about yesterday, which is commenting on somebody else commenting on another video. But just to sort of set the scene, this is what he was saying. I think it was the back end of last year. I think it was December, actually. He's basically saying, have more kids than you can afford, etc. I did this, it was a live stream, and I clipped a video from it basically saying, you know, he gives terrible advice to the youth, etc., etc. I mean, so you can see where he's coming from. He's obviously coming at this from a very traditional conservative viewpoint, as you can understand. And this speech, I thought in particular, was quite bellicose. Let's just have another look at a little bit of what he says. And actually, what we're going to see a little bit later is on Hinder and swipes wound up a bit. He's promoting.
Honestly.
Yeah, don't worry about a job. Don't worry about meaningful income. Fuck that.
Honestly.
Yeah, don't worry about a job. Don't. He's promoting here, but anyway.
Basically, you know, they should go get a job first. You're wrong. I'm sorry. Honestly.
Yeah, don't worry about a job. Don't worry about meaningful income. Fuck that. Get her wifed up, lads.
We are on the verge of a population collapse in this country. Every day, I receive emails from young women filled with regret in their late 30s. Write this email because what you talk about on the show is exactly right. I have a couple college degrees. I have a great job and almost no debt. But I was told, you know, to forego having a family. But now I'm looking around and I have a lot of cats.
So, okay, you get the idea. We probably don't need to watch much more of that. You can see where he's coming from. He's obviously very trad, very conservative, very Christian, etc. Fair enough. And obviously this has become, well, this has always been a talking point in terms of the space, because you've got people who are in the, let's say, red pill space or the manosphere who talk about intersexual dynamics and how best to handle that. And people have got different attitudes to it across the board, from being, you know, a promiscuous sort of bachelor who doesn't want to settle down and get married, to these guys who say, no, actually, you should remain a virgin until you get married, and you should get married very young, and you should have as many kids as possible, etc. So you've got this whole spectrum of people, and obviously the people at either ends, and even the people who are more close to the center, disagree. And this has obviously come to a head recently. You guys will be aware of the beef that Pearl's got into with Chase, Sovereign Bra, of the, well, sometimes of the Whatever podcast, who's on Twitter. He's been very vocal recently about what he calls the Christ pill. He's been slating Myron from Fresh and Fit and basically saying Myron's evil and degenerate for promoting promiscuity and blah, blah, blah. And right now we're in a situation where they've been trying to organize a debate, and it seems like both sides are up for having a debate, and it's been dubbed Trads against Chads, which is quite funny, really. So you got on one side, you've got Myron, and Jay Waller, actually, I think was mooted as being one of the guys as well. Jay Waller, Rollo Tomasi, I think Mike Sartain, whoever else, right? And then on the other side, you've got Chase, Sovereign Bra, and his merry band of fairly uninspiring Twitter Christian influencers who are going to sort of speak to the Christ pill side of things. There's a scheduling problem at the moment because Chase is saying he needs to stay in wherever it is he lives. I think Santa Barbara, because he's looking after an elderly relative. He can't come to Miami. Myron doesn't want to do it at the Whatever studio, so they've come to an impasse at the moment. Hopefully that debate takes place. I would be really interested to see that. I think a lot of us would. You know, we'll all be getting the popcorn out and enjoying that because it's kind of interesting. It's kind of spicy if you're in this space and you kind of got a bit of vested interest. You know some of the people. But as I said on Twitter earlier, ultimately, I don't think it's really going to be very valuable, because the problem with these Christ pill guys is they don't really have a solution. They don't really have any actionable solution other than just do what chumps have done for thousands of years, which is get married, have a bunch of kids that maybe you can afford, maybe you can't, do the sign of the cross and just kind of hope for the best. I mean, that's really their best solution. You know, the solution always comes down to, well, God will, you know, protect you. God, Christ will, you know, look out for your best interests. And that's kind of it. And of course, the counter argument to that is, yes, but what about the divorce rate? What about the family courts? What about the fact that guys are getting hauled over the coals, etc., etc.? So there's this schism in the space at the moment between these very traditional, very Christian right-wing people and these other people that they all dub as being degenerates, myself included. Actually, I have the distinction of having been called publicly a degenerate by Chase, by Sovereign Bra. So it's good to know that in his eyes, I have reached that accolade. But I'm not alone. Obviously, he said it about Myron. He said it about, you know, he talks about Pearl promoting degeneracy. Anybody else who doesn't agree with him basically is evil and a degenerate. Okay, and that's a problem in itself. But anyway, so Charlie Kirk is. I don't know that they know each other, but they're certainly on the same side of the conversation, if that makes sense. So I was quite interested to see, to watch this whatever podcast because Charlie's on it, and I was kind of keen to just sort of like find out what he was going to say. I don't know why that's not coming up. Yeah, I was keen to find out what he was going to say and sort of break it down really. Let me just try this again. Actually, though, and I have to say, in all fairness, the thing with this is, Charlie on this episode of whatever is actually pretty graceful about stuff. He's actually pretty fair and open-handed. And I have to say that. And I'm not a fan of this ultra trad, you know, kind of Christian kind of proselytizing thing. But to be fair, I mean, the dude he's pretty chill. Okay. He does allow the women to talk. He doesn't judge people. And one of my biggest problems with people in this space on that side of things, you know, these Christian trad people, is they seem to be incredibly judgmental and they'll just yell at people and call everybody evil. Everybody's this kind of subhuman except for them. And it just seems somehow to be contrary to what you would think Christianity ought to be about. You know what I'm saying? Charlie Kirk, to be fair, doesn't do that, or he doesn't do that here anyway. He's a lot more chill even than in that speech, and I think that's to his credit really. But there's still some interesting stuff that comes out of it. So as I say, we can have a look at it. Let me just bring it up now. Okay, so comments in the chat. If they get Troy, I'm going to start a protest. Troy needs to be protected at all costs. Yeah. Well, we'll see, man. I mean, if the Matrix might shut me down during this very stream. So if they do, I do have an email list, which is in the description below. So you can get onto my email list and we can keep in contact that way. But yeah, I mean, if Jay Waller's getting cancelled, I mean, that's pretty, yeah. I'm quite surprised about that, actually. Christian Hernandez, modernity is an L, but so is tradition. Just try and make things work and seek the truth. Okay. The counter argument to these people is basically, what about reality? Well, yes, and that's the counter argument that everyone makes. You know, that's the counter argument that Pearl will make, and then they'll throw it back at Pearl and say, well, you're not a real Catholic, you're not a real Christian, you know, you're leading men down a dark, degenerate path, you're ruining Western society, blah, blah, blah. But the fact still remains, what is the answer? And that's what I'm saying about if they do a debate, because I think if they do a debate, you know, it's going to be great. It's going to be very interesting. We can all get the popcorn out and sit there and be entertained for a few hours. But is it really going to solve anything? No, because they're still not going to bring any answers to the table. And I can tell you that now without the thing even having been organized yet. I feel half naked. Why is meeting women a degenerate activity? How about just banning all alcohol since it's the same? Completely idiotic. Well, I mean, I would agree. You know, the way in which these people are defining degeneracy. I mean, a lot of the time they think going on a few dates and going to a nightclub is degeneracy, when, you know, really to most normal human beings, these are pretty standard things. It's not exactly the fall of Rome, right? It's not exactly the Weimar Republic. It's pretty kind of basic stuff, really. They're taking a very, very, very strict traditionalist view of things, and I don't know that that's helpful. I don't know if it's particularly, you know, that it's going to work in today's day and age. Put it that way. Alter Creed. I think it's Alter Creed says, "What's the topic?" So we're reviewing. We're doing a reaction to the Whatever podcast. Christ is about judging other people, not themselves. Laugh, says 2-star yo. Okay, let's have a look at this. Put your comments into the chat as we go through. Any super chats, of course, gratefully received. So that I can keep myself in Haribo's, which would be nice. How do we go over here? God damn it. Okay, here we go.
Welcome to the Whatever Dating Talk podcast, where we try to make sense of the modern dating hellscape. Thanks for tuning in tonight. Our first show of 2024. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with me. I appreciate that. We're coming to you live from Santa Barbara, California, every Sunday and Tuesday, 5 p.m. Pacific. I'm your host, Brian Atlas. I'm joined by my co-host, Kiki, back there.
Yeah, I'm going to speed it up slightly just so that we can get through this a bit quicker. And I will probably skip forward through some bits, but let's just see what they say at the beginning. Oh my God, what happened then? Why did that happen? Apologies.
The Whatever Dating Talk podcast, where we try to make sense of the modern dating hellscape. Thanks for tuning in tonight. Our first show of 2024. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with me. I appreciate that. We're coming to you live from Santa Barbara, California, every Sunday and Tuesday, 5 p.m. Pacific. I'm your host, Brian Atlas. I'm joined by my co-host, Kiki, back there. She's somewhere back there. She's a bit shy. A few quick announcements before the show begins. This podcast is viewer supported.
So Kiki is the random sex doll that they have sitting in the back of the show, which is quite quite strange. I can see why people find that kind of humorous. There's also this other girl who always sits behind Brian, and she wears this kind of weird military hat, and I'm never entirely sure what her role is. She doesn't ever really seem to speak, but she's kind of always there. So there's some kind of idiosyncrasies about this show. I would love to go on. I mean, they won't have me. Well, they might have me at some point, but I mean, obviously, if you're a woman, then you're going to have an easier time getting on the show. That's why Pixie and these people. I know various women who've been on there many times. I've pitched going on there and haven't been successful thus far. I mean, if you're a bigger male content creator, then you're going to have a better chance. But we'll see. Hopefully, it'll happen at some point. But yeah, it's a very interesting show. I think Brian is kind of more chill than Myron, which is, I think you could say is a good thing. You could say, well, he needs to challenge these women more. Anyway, but regardless, this is the format. So let's have a look.
Be here, and I run Turning Point USA and also host a podcast, The Charlie Kirk Show, and have a YouTube channel, all that good stuff.
Sweet.
From Arizona.
Age?
I just turned 30, so I'm getting too old for this stuff.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well,
yeah, I mean, it's amazing, actually, that he's 30, isn't it? He seems a lot older. And to his credit, he's a very good speaker. He's charismatic. I mean, he's able to get his point across very well, and he's able to marshal lots of different facts, which you'll see him do in this episode. So he is a very impressive individual, particularly for somebody of that age.
Oh, okay.
30 and flirty. When was your birthday?
October.
Oh.
Yeah.
Great. So what we're going to do is we're going to go around the table once more.
He does look a bit older, though.
What is everyone's current relationship status? So are you single, talking stage, situationship, friends with benefits, relationship, married, polycule? How long?
Polycule. Jesus.
How long have you been single?
I've been alive too long, man. I mean, I don't really I don't have any huge objection. I mean, whatever people want to do, however you want to live your life, that's absolutely cool. But polycule, I could never envisage in my existence a situation where I would be in anything called a polycule. I mean, it just sounds fucking horrendous.
If you're single, what's the longest relationship that you've ever been in? Starting with you, go ahead.
I am single. I've been single for about, I would say, 4 months now. And the longest relationship I've had would probably be a year.
All right.
I'm taken. I'm in a relationship with my boyfriend, liking cooks, and we've been together for 5 months, and this is my longest relationship and my first relationship.
Congrats. There you go.
I am in a relationship. What was the other question?
So that's interesting. So I know Erin, and I mean, I met her a year or so ago in Miami on Fresh and Fit, and at that point she was single. Obviously now she's with somebody. They've been together for a few months, so good for her. She's been on this show before. She got thrown off several times ago because they asked her what her body count was and she refused to reveal it. And she got thrown off after the first 2 minutes, which was quite funny. But they've let her back on, which is good because she's good value. I mean, the thing with her and Pixie is people complain about them, but they do bring a lot of value to these shows because to have a dissenting voice on there is you know, it just makes it more spicy.
What is her longest?
Longest 2.5 years.
I'm single, like Pringle. I'm looking to date. My longest relationship was like 3 to 4 years.
So that's Pixie. Obviously, known her for, just over a year. She was over here in London recently. We were both on the Pearl show together. We both been on F&F together. We've been on Valuetainment together. I've done a bunch of shows with her, actually. And hopefully at some point we'll get her on here and we can find a topic to talk about. She is coming from a progressive standpoint. She is a feminist. She dislikes the patriarchy, even though, you know, we're a little bit hazy around the degree to which the patriarchy actually exists. You could say 0. She thinks it still exists and it's a problem. But anyway, she comes on these shows a lot and argues and pisses people off, which I think is quite funny.
You said longest relationship was 3 to 4 years?
Yeah.
And is this a new relationship for you? Okay, because I think last time you were on, you were not in a...
Yeah.
Okay, got it. So how new is this, like a month or so? If you can you scoot into the table just a tad? Is there no space? That's fine. How new is the relationship?
Not even a month, so.
Okay, can I have you scoot your microphone that way just a tad? No, other way?
Oh.
Yep, perfect. What about you?
I'm single. I've been single for a year, and my longest relationship was 1.5 years.
All right.
I've been single for about 2 years, a little bit over 2 years. And my longest relationship is between 6 months and a year. Yeah, and they usually always cap at that. I've only had like 3 relationships and they never last longer than that. I get bored too easily, I guess.
You get bored too easily?
I
Okay.
think.
Red flag!
I don't know.
And you said from 6 months to a year, you seem a little uncertain about the length of your longest relationship.
Yeah.
Is it a bit hazy in the sense of, was it on again, off again? Is that kind of what you're...
It wasn't really on and off, but it was kind of like we dated for 6 months and then we were in a relationship
Okay.
for a couple more months. So the total of kind of being in a situation and dating and stuff
Got it.
can be up to a year, yeah.
Okay, Molly, what about you?
I'm in a relationship. It's been 10 months, and my longest relationship was about a year.
So Molly is a corn actress, and she does Fansly, I think, as well. Anyway, so there's some quite interesting sort of beef, but not really beef, but there's some quite interesting sort of interactions between her and Charlie, who is sitting next to her. Obviously, they're at polar opposites in terms of, you know, how they regard a life well lived and so on and so forth. So this is one of the more interesting parts of this particular episode.
All right. Charlie, what about you?
And it's kind of funny because Molly actually looks quite demure there, doesn't she? I mean, and this is the thing, guys. You've always got to be careful. You know, the good girls, the ones that look like the good girls. Yeah. But then the girl sitting next to her with the tattoos, I mean, a lot of red flags there as well because she's talking about, you know, she gets bored very quickly, which is, I mean, I get it, right? You know, we live in this dopamine addicted age. We're all a bit ADHD in some shape or form. I know I certainly am. You know, we always want that next bright shiny thing, but when it's a woman who's expressing that, then you've got to be careful.
Happily married.
Okay.
We've been together for 5 years, and we'll be celebrating our 3-year anniversary in May, and we have a beautiful daughter.
All right. Well, I think
So, I mean, at least, and just looking at the chat here, Christian Hernandez says, it's unfortunate that Chase, as in Sovereign Bra, isn't married. Otherwise, we just have to wait 10 years and he'd be singing a different tune. And I mean, look, you know, I don't wish ill on anybody, right? I hope that he gets what he wants and he has a happy and successful life. But the reality of actually being married as opposed and having a family and all that stuff, as opposed to not, and being a 27-year-old who, you know, just has some spicy things to say about it on Twitter, is there's a gulf between that. At least in the case of Mr. Kirk here, he has been married for 5 years. He has got a daughter. He's walking the walk as well as talking the talk. And what's, I think, good about this is he's a damn sight less judgmental than some of these people that we've seen on Twitter, some of these so-called Christian accounts on Twitter we've seen over the past couple of weeks, all right? And, you know, good on him for that.
You know, you're being the only married person here. I think that's perhaps a good jumping off point. I think a lot of people, both men and women, they're kind of frustrated with the current dating landscape. Do you have any thoughts on this? What's your diagnosis and any solutions? And we'll open it up.
Sure. Yeah. I think people need to date with the intent to marry. Yeah, I'm a big critic of hookup culture in its current form. I believe sex should be sacred and is sacred. And
No. Why does he have to be so boring about it? I don't know. I mean, this is where I differ from these people. The issue here is that these people will never countenance any sense of sex being for anything other than procreation, basically, and certainly anything outside being in a marriage. But the problem is, and they do get into this later in the show, what is a marriage? Well, it's a legal document designed by the state, which effectively incentivizes the woman to walk off if she feels like it and take half of your assets. I mean, that's kind of what it comes down to, right? So these people will say, well, you should be married before you have sex. Okay, fine. But then if you look at the state of marriage, is that really realistic to say that? Is marriage even, I mean, yes, I know they're often conducted in churches, not always, but they still are often conducted in churches. There is still that religious element to it for sure. But is it really a religious thing anymore? It's this man-made thing that is actually now just a legal instrument of the state. And also as well, that just completely ignores the fact that biologically, right, sex is an incredibly enjoyable thing. We all seek out sex. Sex doesn't always take place in the real world, not in the tradcom fancy world. In the real world, sex doesn't always take place for the purpose of procreation. It takes place for many other reasons. And actually, the corn lady goes into this in a minute. And is that such a bad thing? Well, they will say yes. I don't think it is. I think, listen, we're on this planet for a short time, for a good time, not a long time, and you might as well enjoy the sensual pleasures of the world to the greatest degree possible. Now, that's not to say treating people badly. That's not to say going around being an arse to people. That's not to say having no ambition in your life other than having sex with people. I mean, that's a terrible route to go down as well. But Jesus Christ, I mean, sorry, literally, are we really in a situation where we've got these young men who are so puritanical that they basically want to turn back the clock and pretend the 60s and that never happened? They want to take us back to at least the 50s. And probably, to be fair, they want to take us back to the 1850s. And look, you know, as much as, and Pearl made a very good point last night, as much as they complain about promiscuity and they'll complain about male promiscuity, the biggest problem facing the church in 2024 is not high value men sleeping around. It really isn't, because only 10% or 20% of most of guys are engaging in hookup culture anyway. The rest of them can't. They're locked out of it. So then a lot of these trads, and I'm not really talking about Charlie here, but just more generally, they make a fucking big thing about what is actually kind of a minority sport for a very small number of dudes. And I just, you know, I don't think it's a big deal anyway, but this is an ideological difference that you're just never going to get around. You know, I could sit, you know, because if I say this, they're just going to say, well, you're a degenerate, you're this, you're that, you're a demon, it's demonic energy, blah, 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 demonic possession, and write it off like that. But actually, the truth of the matter is, you know, I don't believe sex is a bad thing. I think as long as you're leaving people better than you found them, and you're being, you know, all the basic normal stuff, it's a great thing. It's an enriching part of the human experience, and these people will completely just that's not even on the table as far as they're concerned.
And it's really thrown away way too generously in this society and culture. And I can tell you, I'm super blessed. I have the best wife in the world. We have an amazing life. Building a family is the coolest thing ever. And my prayer for all of you is that you one day can do that. That's so cute. It's honestly the most joyful thing. And I've had some pretty amazing experiences. I've been very, very blessed. Very lucky, you could say, but very blessed is the word I would use. And the greatest joy I've ever had is coming home to my little daughter running up to my leg. There's nothing that even comes close to it. Not flying.
By the way, I put this up to 1.75 now, so we can kind of speed through this. If that is a bit fast, let me know in the chat, and we can slow it back down again. But I think just for the purposes of, you know, getting this thing rolling, we might as well speed it up a little bit. So let me know if you think it's too fast, but I think it's okay.
Flying on Air Force One, not meeting with presidents, that pales in comparison to your little girl coming up and squeezing your leg.
No time for healthy weekday meals? I cannot wait to try this.
Okay, got it. Does anybody else have any thoughts on that with, you know?
Yeah, so I just wanted to circle back because you said something that caught my attention and I disagree with it. Because you said something like, I hope all of you can experience that. And you said something like, I hope all of you can experience that. And I mean, I don't disagree with that. I hope we can all experience joy in life like that. That's amazing. But I just feel like...
Well, it is for a lot of people, but not necessarily for everybody. And this is the other thing as well. Like, you know, if you're like, I'm kind of a libertarian really. So I think people should do, broadly speaking, what they want to do, okay? And I don't think every lifestyle is right for everybody. I don't think being a parent is right for everybody, right? I think there are people who are probably better off not being parents, to be quite frank. And so, yes, I mean, that is certainly a form of joy. I don't think that can be denied. that having children is. And look, I mean, yes, you can argue it is the purpose of life. It's certainly the purpose of life as far as the human species is concerned, because the purpose of our species is to replicate itself. There's no other point to it, really. When you take it down to the individual level, though, it becomes a little bit more hazy, because actually, as an individual, the purpose of your life might be to write some amazing books, or it might be to create great music, or it might be to travel the world, or it might be to discover a higher plane through meditation. Like, it could be many, many things, and you get to define that yourself. Okay. So yes, I mean, it is a wonderful thing for people that it is right for, but not necessarily for everybody.
I don't know why you said it that way. Like, maybe we're not going to experience that because we don't have the same values as you.
Is that what he said?
Yeah. So so she's picking him up now as being slightly judgmental, and perhaps he was. I don't think it quite came over like that, but I see what she's saying.
From that,
I don't think that's not the impression I got. But if Charlie wants to answer.
Well, if I said it that way, I didn't mean it that way. But do you feel, is that a goal that you have, to be a mother?
Okay. The P star is giving Charlie a covert. Well, okay, all right, okay, all right. Moving on.
No, but Molly, do you think that
keep it?
Is that okay?
No, sorry, go ahead.
Is that a goal that you would want in your life to be a mother?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think that in your self-described current line of work that is more or less likely?
What do you mean by likely? Like,
I mean, maybe you can tell me more about your line of work.
what would you like to know?
Do you think that it's going to create a good, happy family in the future?
Right now I'm working on it. Yeah, me and my boyfriend are doing really well in our relationship, and honestly, I think contrary to what most people would believe, I think.
How long did you say she'd been with him, though? I think it was about a year or something, wasn't it? So it wasn't a hugely long period of time.
Being in porn has strengthened us.
Why is that? I've never heard that.
Yeah.
Can you tell me why?
So basically, like, being in porn and having sort of like this open type of relationship where you can have sex with other people, obviously there are certain boundaries in the relationship, but it really makes you think about, what's important, why you love this person, and, you start to really hold things true that are deeper than just sex, and I think that on top of that, you can share sex with other people together, and that's really bonding, that's really fun.
Are you ever worried that, do you ever get jealous?
Okay, somebody said that maybe it's a little bit fast if it's not your first language, so I'll take it down to 1.5, because we can always skip through some bits as well.
Of him if he has sex with other people?
Yeah.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
So how does that strengthen your relationship?
Because we're able to talk about it, and I think every time that I bring up a concern and he's able to soothe it and we're really able to like work on that bond, it just makes it stronger.
Right, okay. All right, this is a bit of a cope, isn't it? I mean, I'm sort of conflicted with this stuff, to be honest, because I'm somewhere in between these two figures. And on the one hand, I'm not Charlie Kirk, right? I mean, obviously, I wish I was, because he's making a fuckload of money, selling his conservative Christian traditionalism to a bunch of people. So I'm not him, but at the same time, and I have some sympathy for her, because from the libertarian perspective, right? If that's what she wants to do, and you can argue, well, she doesn't realize the consequences of it now and she'll regret it in the future and blah, blah, blah. Well, maybe, but I mean, she's an adult woman, right? She has the right to if she wants to make movies, she wants to make money that way, she's got a right to do it. And as I've said before, in many ways, to be honest, if I was a hot young woman, I'm not saying I do corn, but I would probably look at things like OF. I'd probably look at things like sugar dating and stuff like that. Why not? Why not squeeze all of the advantages that you can while you've got that opportunity to have a fucking amazing life, right? I mean, so I do get why women do this, but to say, and this is kind of similar. If you guys saw an early episode when I had the OF girl Eva Generosi came on, she's doing some corn as well now, I think. So she does corn. She's also in a relationship with her boyfriend who's in the industry, and she'll sleep with people outside of it, usually for work, but there's a bit of blurring of the lines and blah blah blah. She was saying something very similar. She was saying like, well, it's something to be worked through. Now this girl, I think, is actually going further though in saying it's something that brings us closer together, and that does sound like a bit of a cope, right? I mean, how sustainable is this really? I mean, come on, right? She's already stated that she's jealous when her boyfriend is going out and having sex with other people. I'm sure, I mean, like, what guy really is happy with his girl going out and having sex on camera? I mean, how can this fucking, like, really, how can this work, right? I get different strokes for different folks. I'm no prude about this stuff. I'm like, whatever, man. But I just, from a male perspective, I certainly wouldn't want to be in that situation. And from her perspective, she's already said that she's jealous. And then she's sort of saying, but the fact that we're able to talk about it and get it out in the open, that kind of brings us close together. It doesn't really ring true to me. I don't see, and this is the whole problem with this whole fucking polycule thing, poly relationships and stuff like that. I think the big problem that we've all got here, guys, is that monogamy is very difficult. Okay, Charlie Kirk seems to be managing it at the moment. Good for him. Some of these tradcons seem to be, it seems to be going okay at the moment. Although it goes okay until it doesn't, because look at Steven Crowder. Great, but for the majority of people, I think it's difficult. Guys are pre-programmed to run around and spread their seed, so there's that, but women also have all of these temptations and these opportunities and comparing themselves to their girlfriends and looking at people on Instagram and getting DMs all the time and all this kind of shit. There's so much happening in society now that is pushing monogamy apart or making monogamy much more difficult than before. So people now seem to be seeking these other alternative workarounds, whether that is, right, I'm going to be in a couple, but it's going to be open on my side and it's going to be closed on her side, which is more like the Jay Waller, the Tate kind of thing, or was what they were talking about before. Or you get things like this, where it's like, okay, well, we're going to be in a couple, but we're both going to play around, but we're both going to be cool with it because we're this super modern couple and, we don't have to be conventional and everything. But it just kind of runs counter to very, very fundamental biological realities. From the male perspective, the male doesn't want his woman to be running around town because it affects paternity. If there was a notional child that came into this situation, how would he really know it was his? So that's the first thing. And then from her point of view, obviously as a woman, she wants the man to stick around because in a notional child situation, she wants that support and that nurturing from him. So it just doesn't really ring true when women say this kind of thing. And it will be fascinating to see how long this relationship that she's got actually lasts, right? I mean, is it sustainable? I don't think it is. What do I know? But I mean, I don't know what you guys think. I just can't see this thing working long term.
Have you ever, when you were having sex, do you ever think it's more than physical? That maybe there's emotional and spiritual connections you might be introducing?
No.
So it's a purely physical experience?
Yeah.
See, for me, sex is more than physical. It's actually...
So that's interesting, isn't it? And this is something that he doesn't push back on her here. And one of the things that Pearl was complaining about, because Pearl actually, I saw her stream last night, and she had a little clip from this, and she was pushing back on Charlie Kirk and saying he's simping. And I think he does simp on this episode somewhat, because the thing with all of these dudes, these Christian trad type guys, is they want to keep the female audience on side, right? So they are very careful not to call out female behavior or sort of illogical arguments that females might make. They're very, very careful to be like, okay, right, let's just keep this very, don't piss off the females, basically, because we need to keep them on side. Having said that, it's also kind of to his credit that he's not as judgmental as, maybe a Chase or some of these other dudes are. So yeah, but he doesn't call her out on this thing. But basically what she's saying is kind of counter to what a lot of the red pill guys would say, which is that actually women, what she's saying is like, listen, I can have sex and it's just a physical thing and there's no emotion involved. Okay. Now that, as I say, runs completely contrary to red pill sort of knowledge, assumed red pill knowledge, right? But she's, I think, the third woman that I've heard in recent times express that. The other one would be Eva Generosi, who I interviewed for the channel a couple of months or a month or so ago, early on in the channel, who's an OnlyFans girl, the corn actress. And also Tiffany Fox, who I've worked with, if you remember, I worked with last year quite extensively over in Miami. Now, she'd also worked in corn, and she'd also said that she was able to separate the sexual act from emotion as well. Now, whether these women are capping and they're just saying that, or another way of looking at it is you could say, well, they're all working in the adult industry and they're kind of soul dead, they've kind of ruined themselves to the point where they're just not able to feel those emotions anymore. I'm not sure. Or is it that actually, as guys, we're fooling ourselves a bit, and these women are able, some women are able to separate sex and emotion more than we think. I suspect it's somewhere in the middle. I think that these women are outliers. And I suspect that maybe they're capping a little bit as well. Because she can't sit here on a podcast and go, oh, actually, yeah, sometimes when I have sex with these other dudes, it's really hot. And I'm really into the guy. Because if her boyfriend's watching, and presumably he will, she's not able to say that, right? So I think there is a bit of capping going on here as well, right? Anyway, let's see what she says next.
That's the least part of sex for me because I get to share it with my soulmate. It's my best friend.
It's definitely a big energy exchange.
Yeah, it's a big energy exchange. And so, Molly, I would ask, respectfully, you know, wouldn't you want to only share that energy exchange with the person that you love most and want to have children with?
Nah, share it around, man. You know, what is love? We want to give love away. We want to all love each other, right? I mean, world peace and all that, man. Why just share it with one person when you can share it with the many? Share it with the masses, man.
I think sex can exchange different types of energies. So like you can exchange an intimate type of energy, or you can exchange a really passionate, like horny type of energy. You can exchange dull energy during sex. You can exchange manipulative energy during sex.
I tend to exchange dull energy during sex mainly.
Sex can be used for a wide variety of things, and I think the biggest one is like marital spiritual connection, but you can't deny that there's other benefits to it as well.
I mean, yeah, so the way she's... I kind of agree with her, but the way she's talking about it is a bit utilitarian, isn't it? Yeah, there are other benefits to sex, you know, the main... And also as well, the main, you know, she kind of has to say, well, the main reason for sex is marital, you know, harmony and blah, blah, blah. Does she really believe that? Maybe she does, but again, maybe she's capping about that. Because there are plenty of people out there. I mean, we live in this very weird artificial bubble where all of these Christian trads have got a big voice, and it feels like people feel like they have to say, in order to be accepted, they have to say, well, no, obviously the real purpose of sex is to build a committed, strong, loving relationship and stuff like that. But, I mean, another purpose for sex might be, I just like sex. You know, I just like having sex. It's a pleasurable thing to do. I like to meet new people. I like to have physical experiences with them. I'm a bit of a degenerate. That's just how it is, right? And maybe that's really how she feels. It's just that she doesn't want to say that because that would, you know, that would not be a politically correct, well, not a politically correct show, but you know what I mean? That might cause her to... Remember the old anti-slut defense thing that game guys used to talk about, where, you know, women don't want to be... Even a woman like her, and she's working in the adult industry, but she still wants to be seen to have some standards. So... Is she capping about that? I don't know, but there is this kind of holier than thou thing, even from a corn actress that comes through, where it's like, no, sex. Obviously, the real reason for sex is creating this bond in this relationship, and you know, creating something long lasting and beautiful and stuff like that. But by the same token, she also says, but it doesn't always have to be that. It could also be horny. It can be pleasurable. It can be, you know, these different reasons. And actually, when you read that book, Why Women Have Sex, which is by Dr. David Buss and Cindy Measton, I think is the other author, they list something like 230, 240 different reasons why women have sex. And actually, there are plenty of different reasons why women have sex. It's not all about, well, I just want to build a strong and, you know, wholesome bond with this other person and we're going to live happily ever after, right? You know, the thing is, right, ultimately we are animals. And you can say, yeah, but we should have evolved past that and etc. But, you know, we are animals. We do get horny. We want to have sex. And this construct that is brought into play by religion is really kind of anti our nature when you think about it. I mean, what Charlie Kirk is basically saying is to young dudes out there, listen, your testosterone is going nuts. You want to go out there, you want to party, you want to sleep with all these different women, but don't do that because there's this book that's 2,000 years old that says you shouldn't. And actually what you should do is not do any of that, and then just marry somebody. Don't have sex with them even before you get married, and then on your wedding day you can have sex with her then. And if it's crap, well, tough luck, because that's what you signed up for. And just, you know, make the sign of the cross and just hope it all works out well.
If you could be with your boyfriend currently, and I waved a magic wand and I said you can make $1 million a year and never do porn again, would you?
No.
Okay.
What? Are you making more than that a year, Molly?
Not yet.
Oh, well then, I mean, aren't you doing that? That's your profession, so I assume you're doing that to make money, correct?
Yeah, 100%. Well,
but Charlie just has a magical wand. He's got, that's not the wand. He's
for the sake of argument.
He's used the wand. You can make $1 million a year. Yeah. You don't have to do, you know, the adult content.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, I wouldn't have to do it. That would be great, but I would still want to do it. I mean, personally, like, I'm an exhibitionist. I love, like, putting my sexual self out there for other people to see, for other people to, like, you know, touch themselves to, have fun with. I love.
Well, at least she's honest about it. And again, this is reminding me of the conversation I had with Eva, where Eva was saying a similar thing. She was basically saying, look, I like it when guys get off on me. You know, I like being the center of attention. I like being sexually admired. And I think actually there is something quite refreshing about women just admitting to this, because I think this is something that gets glossed over in the culture a lot. Okay, because we, on the other side of the equation, we get this whole talk about objectification and the male gaze, and oh no, men are just objectifying women and they're sexualizing them, making them into these sexual creatures. But actually, you know, her testimony would suggest she actually likes it. Now, okay, fine. You might say, well, she likes it under certain circumstances and not others, and etc. Whatever. The reality is, you know, she's just said that she likes the performative aspect of this. She likes to be seen as in a sexual context. Okay, she gets off on it. She enjoys it to the point that even if Charlie Kirk gave her $1 million, she still wouldn't give up porn. I think if I was her significant other, that would be ringing some alarm bells at that point, because it's like, oh, hang on a minute. First of all, you're saying, well, what are you really saying? You're saying you're doing this for a job, but then if you had $1 million, you still wouldn't give it up. I mean, like, and this is the problem, isn't it? Right? If you were in a relationship, if you were the guy and you're in a relationship with her, how would you be feeling now? Because it's like, well, unless he's into her getting, you know, having sex with other guys, which is a possibility. That is a kink for some people, but I would say a very, very small proportion of people. It's ringing bells of the old, you know, the doeshelikeme lana kind of situation, where it's like, okay, we acknowledge that people are non-monogamous, so therefore we're going to allow each other to be non-monogamous, but it's going to be in the context of this relationship where we are the main two parties. Okay. Sadly, we saw how that went. Okay, they're no longer together. All right. For whatever reason, I don't know, you know, the exact circumstances, but they're no longer together. Okay, it didn't work, or at least it didn't work long term. I just cannot see how a polycule or a sort of polytype setup like this can really work long term. It just doesn't seem feasible to me. I could be wrong. Maybe I'm a misogynistic old dinosaur. No doubt I am. But I mean, you tell me, how can it possibly work? Maybe there's some people in the chat who know. So just looking at the chat, what are we saying here? The issue is not, so SJ, the issue is not enough judgment. We got this dating demographic due to a lack of shame and judgment. Well, yeah, but I mean, the only pushback I would have to that is it has benefited some guys, okay? Because like we will often tell clients, look, it's the most difficult dating environment it's ever been for all the reasons we've listed. But it's also actually the best time to be alive as a single guy, if you get the fundamentals right and you know what you're doing, because, you know, there is sexual opportunity everywhere. Okay, there is no shortage of sexual opportunity, right? So it depends what you want. I mean, yes, you could say, well, we should bring back shaming and all the rest of it if you want to return to the 1950s. But is that really? And I made this point on Twitter, and then Chase actually came back at me and called me a degenerate. But I mean, is that really in accordance with male sexuality? Is that genuinely in accordance with what men actually want? What men really are programmed to do, as we said, is basically to have multiple partners. Okay, now that's not to say that love doesn't exist. It's not to say that you don't meet that someone special. You may want to step off the merry-go-round at some point, but I mean, I think it would be lying to ourselves as guys to say that, you know, we don't have that desire for variety, and women do as well to an extent. So, you know, it's all very well to say we'll bring back shaming, but as a guy, is that not shooting yourself in the foot? Is that not actually going contrary to your innate biological urge? So Sergio, you know, it says, no, I'm against shaming these 304s. Fair enough, right? Because probably it's working in his favor. So SJ, agreed, take ownership and responsibility for poor life choices. Far too often it's the victim card after, like Mia or Riley. Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I would agree with that. And of course, this woman and Eva are both young, and so they haven't, as far as I know, suffered the negative consequences yet, so it's not really a problem. You're right, though. I think in the end, then you have to take it on board and say, well, look, I made the choice to do these things. I'm now in this situation. It's on me, right? And that kind of responsibility. And I think that is incumbent upon the individual. Yes. I feel half naked. Troy Caleb Jones might be an exception. Well, yeah, maybe. I mean, I was talking to somebody about him the other day. I mean, if he wanted to come on and we could have a conversation, I'd be interested to do that. He got a lot of pushback for his sort of view of this stuff, but I mean, I'd be happy to, to sort of talk to him about it and see how it works for him. I feel half naked. So poly relationship sounds complicated, but it's better than monogamy with cheating behind the scenes. Well, that's a moot point, isn't it? That is the point. That is the point that Destiny made. And Melina, they would say that. They would say, well, look, the problems that you are identifying that we may have in our poly relationship are problems that monogamous couples also face. They also face jealousy. They also face, infidelity happening, cheating, being broken up with, all that kind of stuff. It happens in normal relationships as well, right? The only problem with that argument is, yes, it does. But if you're going into the relationship where that's baked in, where the fact that cheating is baked in to the very foundation of that relationship, surely that's worse than if you go in, at least with the understanding you guys are going to attempt to be faithful to each other. You're going to attempt to be on the same page. I mean, it just seems like, it almost seems like you're going poly. You've just given up the ghost. You're like, yeah, fuck it. Well, this is never going to work. So we can both do whatever we want. I mean, I do get the logic, but I think the problem is more structural. The problem is more fundamental, and it is with monogamy itself. And it is with monogamy itself in an age where monogamy is, I wouldn't say discouraged by the culture, but it's certainly hindered by the many aspects of the nature of the culture. And that's not even to get into the whole then problem with marriage and family courts and divorce laws and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of things that are working against a conventional monogamous relationship going the distance in the way that it once would have done. Unless you're Charlie Kirk and you can ride the waves.
Can I ask you a question? Since you're about presenting yourself to the world, do you have a good relationship with your father?
Okay, here we go.
No, I don't talk to him.
Oh, here we go. She doesn't talk to her father, of course. Charlie Kirk straight in there with the daddy issue question, and bullseye. He gets it right. She doesn't talk to her father. It's such a cliche. It's a meme, isn't it? The daddy issue thing. Even girls joke about it, right? But there is some truth in it. There is some truth in it. It's women who, it seems like women who don't have that strong bond with their father, they are more inclined towards either the profession that she's in or different kinds of behaviors, or maybe being attracted to more unconventional relationships, or guys who are maybe not good for them and all the rest of it. It's weird how it works, but there it is.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah. I actually think it's principle that you said you wouldn't give it up just for money, because that shows that you do it for reasons beyond just like financial ones. That shows you have like a genuine passion and interest in it.
I mean, come on, Erin. I like Erin. She's a great girl, but I mean, what are you arguing? You're arguing, oh, that's actually really good because that shows that you've got a passion for porn. I mean, I know, I understand what she's saying, but it's a bit is it... In principle, I haven't really got anything much against porn. I don't think it's half as damaging as people say. I don't think it's like causing the decline of Western civilization. I think we've got much bigger problems to worry about than people fapping to some videos. But in saying that, to laud somebody for having a passion for banging on camera seems like an odd argument to make, I would suggest.
Grid 1 Motorsports donated $200. In other words, sex is whatever she needs to make believe it is at the time she needs to rationalize it. It's called whole logic.
Oh.
I wouldn't use that language, but Molly, what I would say is you seem like a sweet person. Maybe something to think about as the years go on, that maybe sex should just be saved for the person you love most. I would ask you or the panel, what would your definition of love be?
Me and the whole panel?
Or just anyone. I mean, that's just a fundamental question with dating, right? Is that a tough question, guys?
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah, it's a very complex answer.
You know what? Let's go around the table. No, it's great. It's great. It's great. We'll go around the table. Do you want to answer? So your question is, what is love?
Yeah, that's a song, too.
What is love?
It's a good song.
Yeah, or how would you define love? Because I think
How do you define love?
Shouldn't that, can we all agree that's probably a good goal of dating, to find love? Do we all agree on that?
Yeah. Yes. So we'll start with you. We'll go around the table if you guys want to give your answers for that. Go ahead.
I feel like love is an emotional connection between two people that value each other and accept each other for who they are. I feel like that's what love is. I feel like real love is when you find kind of, I guess, things you don't like about the person you're with and you still choose to be with them and grow with them either way. I feel like that's real love.
I feel like that's more of a romantic type of love. I feel like love is something that's going to transcend just romantic relationships. And I would say it's like an emotional bond that exists between human beings. And I say human beings just to specify that I don't think it exists between people and things, because I think that's kind of materialistic.
Bums of the world,
oh,
listen
no.
up. The planet's future rests on our cheeks. With Who Gives a Crap recycled.
Plan Life, thank you for the gift of 50 memberships. Appreciate it. Sorry, go ahead, Aaron. Go ahead.
Just that I think love is a connection that exists between people, not things, to get away from more like a materialist understanding of like people saying like, I love my car, or I love this item or whatever. I don't really think that constitutes love. But other than that, I would not be able to really define it. It's a question that philosophers have been debating since the beginning of time. I don't know that it'll be on this podcast.
Hold on.
Donald Trump donated $200. I'm pleased to announce Charlie Kirk as my VP. It'll be the best. Big. Trump Kirk 2024. Tremendous. We will make America great again.
For the record, I'm not old enough.
Oh, you're not old enough to be the VP pick. Okay. I thought we had a whatever exclusive here. Charlie Kirk,
35.
the VP pick. Okay. I'm sorry, Aaron. Go ahead.
No, just that.
Okay. What about you?
I agree with both of them, so I don't really have anything else to add.
Okay. All right.
There's different types of love. Obviously, we don't feel love for our parents the same way we do with a romantic partner or friend.
Or friends,
yeah. But with that being said, I would classify love as a deep connection and emotion that you share with someone, and also kind of like really hoping for the best for that person, for who they are and their future, and just like what you hope you can do together as well.
Okay.
I mean, it's a difficult question, actually. I wonder what, I'm just trying to think what I would have said if I was there. I don't really know. I mean, I think Pixie's kind of got it more or less right. I mean, it's got to be about, it's that deep bond, it's that deep soul level bond, isn't it? And it is also, it's got to be about caring about that other person and their happiness, their best interests. I mean, I come across as very, like, I do loads of posts on Twitter and stuff, and I come across as being very nihilistic sometimes and very sort of, you know, I'm doing all this stuff against marriage and all that kind of shit. You know, some of it half jokingly, some of it, you know, there's a serious undertone to it. But I do also, I have almost two opposing ideas in my head at the same time. One of them is that, look, this is all, the soulmate myth is bollocks because, look, there's 8 billion people on the planet, right? Just mathematically, how can it possibly make sense that this one person is your soulmate to the exclusion of all these other people, right? It just doesn't really, you know, and you just happen to have been born in a particular country or you met them in a certain city. It's like, you know, if you'd have been somewhere else, you'd have met somewhere else, you know, all of that stuff. I get it. And I also believe that you can be compatible with different people as well in different ways. So I get all of that, and one-itis I think is a very damaging thing. What we call one-itis in the, you know, the dating coaching world, which is basically getting too hung up on one person, particularly if that's not reciprocated, that can be very, very damaging and cause a lot of problems. Having said that, at the same time, and this is almost an opposing viewpoint that I hold simultaneously, I also believe that there are bonds with certain people that cannot be replaced. Okay, I believe that there are certain people, I don't know if it's DNA, I don't know if it's pheromones, I don't know if it's just something to do with some kind of deep subconscious thing. But I do think that there are some people that you gel with in a way that you just don't with anybody else. And I think that is irreplaceable. I think you can't replace those people, okay? And maybe it happens once in a lifetime, maybe it happens a couple of times in a lifetime. Does that mean I believe in true love? I guess you could say we're playing semantics. I guess you could say it does if you want to use that terminology. But there is something very deep there, and it's that soul level, that soul connection. It's kind of indefinable. That's why I think I would find it hard to answer the question. But I think Pixie is correct in sort of stating that, and also saying it's got to be also about caring about that other person as well. It can't be this kind of just thing where it's just you taking. It's like, oh, she makes me feel good, so that's all it is. It's got to be about you feeling, you know, that other side as well. So I'm sort of like, I'm a very cynical, hopeless romantic who consistently self-sabotages. And I've made a career out of it so far. So, you know, let's see how it goes. But
I agree with them as well. I think love is accepting someone for all of them, not just the good parts. And I think that it should be like unconditional. If you're going to love someone, that it should be, you know, the good and the bad.
That's a tricky one for me because I have a hard, I'm difficult to kind of deal with the term love and things around it. I'm kind of scared of it. But I feel like the main type of love that I like to focus on is just the self-love. Like as the rest of the girls are saying, there's so many different types of love you can find in a partner. But I feel like, I don't know, I couldn't imagine myself loving someone unconditionally, but myself.
So she's very avoidant, isn't she? And that's the other thing, because I think people have these different attachment styles. I mean, mine at one point was coming out as, when you do these tests, you can look up attachment styles online, and you can look at your attachment style. My attachment style was coming out as sort of, I think they called it like confused avoidant or something, where it's like, on the one hand, you're not needy, but you kind of really want that person, you want that validation, you want to be adored, basically. You want to be worshipped by that person, but you also want to keep them at arm's length at the same time. I was coming out as that for quite a long time. And then a year or so ago, it shifted, and I started to, when I did the test, I was coming out as avoidant, and I did the test a couple of times, and it was avoidant. I was like, no, it's very much keeping people at arm's length. And I think that shift makes sense because of certain life events that happened to me. This woman here seems to be coming at this from a very avoidant position, and you might say narcissistic position, because she's talking about self-love. She's saying, no, actually, loving myself is more important. She gets bored very quickly. She probably dumps, the guys that she's with after a little while because she wants, some more enjoyment over here. So the other thing, I suppose, that factors into this conversation is, what sort of attachment style do you have? Now, I guess, so the most healthy attachment style, let me just Google it. If you guys know, put it in the chat what the attachment styles are. But the most healthy attachment style is basically the one where, you had probably a good upbringing. There wasn't really big problems in your family. Everyone was sort of quite happy. You had a very good impression of relationships growing up. And I think those are the people that it seems to work out for more. So let's just have a look. Okay, so the attachment styles are anxious, avoidant, disorganized, and secure. Okay, and I suppose if you want to be Charlie Kirk, or if you want to be one of these, trad red pill guys, or whatever, trad conservative guys, you want to be the secure type, really. Which is basically like people who've developed this type of attachment are self-contented, social, warm, easy to connect to. They're aware of and able to express their feelings. They tend to build deep, meaningful, long-lasting relationships. Well, if you're that, then that's great for you. Unfortunately, a lot of us aren't, and that may be. And listen, we're all products of society, right? I mean, I am a product of a broken home. My parents divorced when I was 7 years old. My father then remarried. My father got custody of myself and my sister. My mother didn't, which even then was quite unusual, and that was for various reasons. And then over time, my father remarried to I had a stepmother. The relationship with her was not always great. Then my mother was sort of moved out of the, sort of slowly pushed out of the picture. So I didn't have a relationship with her for a long time. So and then on top of all of that, my father and my stepmother ended up getting divorced after quite a long time as well. So, I suppose the lens that I'm looking at this stuff through, just on a purely personal level, is from that, right? I never had this great sort of like white picket fence experience of family life or marriage, right? It was never like, oh yeah, well, this is the obvious thing to do because it looks fucking great. I mean, for me as a kid, it looked awful. And I was like, well, who the hell would want to go through all of that? I suppose I've carried that into adulthood. And you could say, well, Troy, that's why you're such a doomer about this stuff, and you're so cynical and blah, blah, blah. And there's probably some truth in that. But that doesn't undermine the fact that also you've just got to look around you, right? You've got to look at the divorce statistics. I don't live in a vacuum. I have friends. I have acquaintances. I know lots of people. I work with lots of people who've, sadly been in marriages and then come out of those marriages. Terrible things have happened, blah, blah, blah. So that, I suppose, has reinforced my less than secure attachment style. But if you've just naturally got a really secure attachment style, and maybe Charlie Kirk does, I mean, maybe Matt Walsh does, maybe a lot of these dudes do, it's going to be a lot easier for them to slip into a paradigm of getting into this loving relationship, and you just think, yeah, it's all cool, right? So that's, I suppose, something that's maybe slightly overlooked in this whole conversation is what people are coming at this stuff from slightly different angles.
Sure, I can find ways.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely, go ahead.
Why do you think you're afraid of love?
I don't know what it is. I think maybe the commitment.
Love
It's
is
like,
scary.
it's
Yeah, she just likes getting around, doesn't she?
scary, isn't it?
Would you say other people are you afraid of love?
I
Do
feel
you
like
feel that way?
I feel like people are afraid of happiness because happiness isn't long term. You can't stay happy forever,
Yeah.
especially with the person. It's not always going to be perfect.
Good point. That is true.
So I feel like a lot of people are scared of love because I feel like, well, let's say you're in a relationship with somebody, right? And I guess the best thing you can hope for is to end up dying together. It's no matter what, it's never like forever lasting. So I don't know. I think
Good grief. Sorry about this, guys. There's a bit of techno in the background. Put your comments in the chat. Just go damn adverts. Put your comments in the chat.
Can't even. Please, let this be the time when
Let me know what you think so far. Sorry about this. It's just they got a bunch of ads playing in this stream. So yeah, I think the attachment style thing does play into it, and I guess it's important from your point of view, if you're considering this stuff, to have a think about where you're coming at this from.
And they like don't give it back, like that hurts a lot.
I think honestly that's the most beautiful part about love, because true love doesn't really care whether you're loved back. It hurts if you're not loved back, but you're still going to love that person or yourself.
Is that true? I think love does demand reciprocity, to be honest. I'm sure there are plenty of Molly simps out there who, or there are probably some, what's the word when you're in love with an online content creator and they don't know you exist? You know, there are probably guys out there who think they're in love with her and they think that they have some kind of relationship with her when they don't. And she's making the argument, well, that's fine, because even if that person doesn't love you back, you still love them. It's a very altruistic way of looking at love, and I understand what she means, but I don't know if that's true. I think we need, and this is why the stream I did yesterday, where we were talking about the basically the incel situation, or the situation of guys who've never had a girlfriend, right? It's not enough for those guys to sit there and go, well, you know, it's all right because I loved this girl at high school and she never looked at me, and then she went off with Chad from the baseball team, but at least I loved her. You know, it's the old, it's better to have loved and lost than never loved at all kind of thing. Is it really? Not really, because we're all fucking human beings. We need affection. We need reciprocal affection. Okay, and I think, unfortunately, I think it does matter if you're loved back. Maybe I'm just being selfish. I don't know. That's my view. I don't know what you guys think.
Self or whatever. But I think that love in general is just a deep understanding and acceptance of a human being.
Yeah, the Greeks had 4 words for love. English has screwed this up. So in Greek, the first word would be phileo, which is the brotherly love, the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia.
Not fellatio.
Yeah, right? So we all know what that's like to love a sibling, right? But that's a completely different type of love than storge in Greek, which is to love a child, which is my wish for all of you. It's a great thing, as I said.
Christ, Bill.
Also, there is eros, which some of you may have had before, which is erotic. We get the English word erotic from. But then there's this...
He looked at me.
Did you look at her?
I did kind of glance right in her direction right as you said that.
So, and then the last is agape, which I'm a Christian. We believe that's the highest form of love, which you guys mentioned sort of, which is you would give your life for that person. And that's a very hard thing, right? I would give my life for my wife in a second, and for my child. And I guess my question is, and anyone can chime in, through the current hookup culture, OnlyFans, is it more or less likely to get towards that ideal self-sacrificing type of love?
Yeah.
Personally, I was just gonna say.
No is the answer he's looking for. No, of course it's not. But I also don't believe that people's paths are linear either. I think, like, I mean, what can I say? I mean, I've had periods of what you might call extreme promiscuity, right? You know, I've been around the block. I'm not getting any younger. I've been around the block. I've dated. Obviously, I've taught this stuff. I've written books about it. I've traveled a lot. I've had a lot of different experiences and all that kind of stuff. Great. I've also had periods of very, very intense love in my life as well. And I've also experienced what he's talking about, which was I would die for this person, okay, if it was necessary to do that. So I've experienced both. But then the other thing, of course, is I am a guy. And do guys experience this stuff a bit differently? Perhaps, because, you know, you've got the argument, and Pearl was making this argument yesterday, that, you know, men are able more to to separate out sex from love itself, and to see them as two distinct, different things, right? You know, so you've got the woman here who is your queen, you would die for her, the very highest form of love that he describes. Maybe there's a sexual indiscretion over here, okay? It doesn't detract one iota from what's going on here, because that is the woman that you love. And I genuinely believe that men can feel that those things can coexist within a man. Within a woman, I'm not sure. I think probably not. Some women may disagree. I think certainly as a guy, that is absolutely the case. So his question, does the whole culture as it exists currently facilitate that kind of love? Obviously, superficially, no, because, you know, we're now in this situation where there are so many temptations and all of this crap going on OnlyFans and blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, I do think that people go through different periods in their life and they can experience different states and different things become important to them at different periods in their life. Can people change? That's the key thing. Received red pill knowledge would be like, well, no, you know, you can't make a 304 into a housewife. I would tend to agree with that. But at the same time, sexuality is very different for men and for women, isn't it? That's the bottom line of this. Let's see what they have to say now.
Personally, I think that a lot of people today are so wrapped up and stuck because they don't know how to love themselves. That causes, you know, a lot of stuff to happen, and it can cloud your mind from really being able to, what's the word I'm looking for? Pursue and look for a connection with another person.
And also with like social media and like dating apps and stuff now, like people are so used to like having options and just like literally just having like whoever they really want to. So it's like a lot harder for people to be like, I guess, more serious because once...
Go ahead, keep going.
Because like I don't know, like for a lot of people that are into like hookup culture and stuff, like I don't know, I just feel like there's a lot of options and people don't take it serious because there's so many people to choose from. And
bingo. That's the problem, isn't it? That is the problem. Too many options, all right? Or at least too many options if you're an attractive young woman. Less so if you are one of those guys making videos in the cars that we were going through yesterday about why you haven't got a girlfriend, all right? It really is famine and feast out there, or it seems to be at the moment, doesn't it? Because, like, on the one hand, you know, she can sit there and go, yeah, there's all these options, blah, blah, blah. But then I can guarantee you there's going to be guys watching this who are like, oh, what do you mean options? I haven't got laid in a year. Like, I send out these messages, I don't get a reply. So the playing field is very, again, in that regard as well, very different for men and for women. And I think this is why women have this skewed perception of what it's like for guys. I don't think women really understand how it is for dudes out there and how brutal it can be if guys don't have their shit together.
Like if they don't like one thing about you, they're like, oh, okay, I'll just find someone else then. Like, I don't know, it's kind of...
Yeah, but I think that goes in terms of like anybody, not just OnlyFans people.
Yeah.
OnlyFans obviously does get in the way of someone wanting to take you serious. But I've actually noticed OnlyFans has got a lot more guys in my DMs. So when I post a booty pic, everyone is loving me.
Well, do they love you or do they lust you?
Well, it's probably more lust, but it's still something to feed my attention ego.
If you could find a stable soulmate, would you quit that line of work? If you were totally financially supported? Similar to the question of Molly.
I mean, anything to make me stay in bed all day, I'll take it. So yeah, but in terms of a soulmate, I don't know. Like, I'd rather myself be my own soulmate. Like, I was raised by an independent mother. I haven't really seen much of a, like, kind of, I guess, a relationship. But I also feel like you don't really need it. My mom has done everything for herself and for me. So, I don't know. I feel like menopause as well. I'm going to get sick of them. And I'll be in a marriage that I will regret. So
sick of who?
If I get married.
Oh,
so if I do get married.
Such a dark view of marriage. It's a beautiful thing, everybody. It's this exciting, amazing. No, trust me. Part of the problem is the culture is so dark and terrible.
It is.
I will be perfect. It's very hard. Marriage is very difficult. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. And raising kids is even harder than that. And I've done some difficult stuff. But it's by far the most fulfilling.
Charlie, do you think people should wait until marriage to have sex?
Ideally, of course, yes. But I'm not here to judge people that, I mean, I'm not here to say that you're a bad person or whatever. That's, I have my...
Sorry, can I just ask?
Yes, sure.
Did you wait till marriage?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
It was the greatest decision of my life.
Wow,
yeah.
wow. Yeah. I would not be able. Imagine you waited till marriage and you find it.
I had other...
I would hate that. Like, that would be so...
Well, there's more important things. I think more important things.
Or that, yeah.
Well,
like, you can't leave it up to the marriage day, man. Sexual intercourse is important.
Let's play the other side of it. Imagine going into the bedroom on your marriage night and knowing that you both have each other for the first time. You never had to share that human being.
Yeah.
All right, so there were two very important points there. The first thing was that he said the current time is very dark, but he also conceded that marriage and actually raising a child were two of the most difficult things that he's ever done. And I do commend him for his honesty there, okay? Because this is something that I hear so rarely from these tradcon people, right? I mean, you'd never hear Chase talking about that in a million years. You'd never talk about any of these other dudes on Twitter talking about this in a million years, actually acknowledging the fact that this shit isn't easy, all right? So the fact that he said that, I think, is very commendable.
Yeah, true. But then again, I lost my virginity to a virgin.
let's just take this back a little bit.
Stuff, but it's by far the most fulfilling.
Charlie, do you think people should wait until marriage to have sex?
Ideally, of course, yes. But I'm not here to judge people. I'm not here to say that you're a bad person or whatever. I have my.
Sorry, can I just ask?
Yes, sure.
Did you wait till marriage?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
And that's the other thing. Okay, so ideally, he thinks people should wait till marriage before they have sex, but he's not here to say that they're a bad person. Again, I think that is commendable, right? This is how these guys should be conducting themselves, okay, if they want to draw people over to their side. Because at the moment, you've got people on Twitter who are basically saying, no, Myron's an evil degenerate. You know, you're possessed by demonic energy if you have a different viewpoint. He's not saying that. He's saying, ideally, you should, but I don't judge other people. For me, I think that is my understanding of how Christianity should be, right? I mean, that seems fair enough, okay? He's sitting next to an adult actress. He's not slating her. He's not doing fire and brimstone. You know, he's been very gracious to her. I think it's a pretty cool representation, actually. And, you know, far be it from me, the most degenerate, you know, person on Twitter, really, to sort of be saying this. But I think this is a pretty fair representation of Christianity. I think this is more the route that these dudes should be taking if they want this message to spread and if they want to sort of encourage people to give this another look.
The greatest decision of my life.
Wow. I would not be able. Imagine you waited till marriage and you find it.
I had other.
I would hate that. Like, I would be so.
Well, there's more important things. I think more important things.
Well, like, you can't leave it up to the marriage day, man. Sexual intercourse is important.
Let's play the other side of it. Imagine going into the bedroom on your marriage night and knowing that you both have each other for the first time. You never had to share that human being.
Yeah, true.
Well, you know, a used car is still going to get you where you want to go, right? Maybe there's a few miles on the clock, but you know, if you want to get through rush hour traffic, it's still gonna do the job. Let's have a look at some of the comments here. Thank you very much for posting comments. Thank you very much for supporting the stream. We want to get 19 likes here at least, because we've got 19 people or concurrent viewers in here at the moment. So do like the video if you haven't done so already. Do subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so. And if you want to do a super chat and keep me in nice vests and nice jackets, that would be great as well. So, I feel half naked. You can love a person or thing, but doesn't necessarily mean demand any return, but it can be difficult to do. Yeah, very difficult. That's the problem. Love is the exchange of resources, good looks, fun lifestyle, and emotional support from the man. For good looks and... it's got a little picture of a cat there. From the woman, an exchange of value. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I agree to an extent, but is it just that? I mean, is there nothing more to it than that? You know, I think the feelings do become involved. I think that there is something. And again, I'm having trouble defining this, and I think the people on the panel didn't do a very good job of defining it either. Really, you know, what is love? What is love? It is this somewhat indefinable thing. It's, you know it when you feel it, you know it when you see it. And I think it is deeper than those things. Although I would agree that those things can certainly help to facilitate it. And if those things, it's not always, it's not conditional, right? So if some of those things were present and then they go away, then that love may not remain. The person, the beloved, may not stay in the picture. Okay, so I do agree with that, but I do think there's a bit more to it. I think it's something more fundamental on the emotional or even the biological level that happens between two people. Not all the time. Not all the time. I mean, not if you're around the back of Weatherspoons, you know, and you're having a quick knee trembler at closing time with somebody, then you're probably not experiencing what I'm talking about. But, you know, if it's a proper relationship and you guys have got that connection, there is a bit more to it than that, I think. Don DeMarco, too many options for chicks. Bingo, Troy. Yes, absolutely. So there is this divide, right? There's the haves and the have-nots. Now, like Pearl says, there are a minority of guys who are playing the game, and they do have abundance in dating. But for the rest of the dudes, dating is very hard, or at least for it seems like for a large number of guys, dating is very, very difficult now. Whereas women are deluged with these opportunities, and they don't have to do very much in order to get them. So there is clearly there's this schism that's happening in the dating marketplace between men and women. Yeah, so Don DeMarco, complaining about men in hookup culture is like complaining about a right-side driver in the US. It's uncommon and therefore ridiculous to rail against it. Yes, that's the point that Pearl was making, because it's sort of like, yeah, I mean, more women than men engage in hookup culture is the reality. So if you're going to criticize hookup culture, then really you want to be criticizing the women first, because it's the women who are actually driving the hookup culture. Because for a start, women are the gatekeepers to sex anyway, right? You know, they're the ones who say yay or nay. And secondly, we know from the stats that women are not swiping on the vast majority of men on, say, the dating apps, right? So most of men are deselected from the dating pool anyway. So the guys who are engaging in hookup culture are elite level, or guys who are perceived to be within the top tier, okay? It's a very small proportion of guys. The average dude in the street is not engaging in hookup culture. So to berate all men for hookup culture is a nonsense, because it's not actually them who's driving it or even participating in it for the most part. Right, marriage causes divorce. Marriage is only hard if you choose the wrong person. It shouldn't be that hard if you choose the right person. That's a surprisingly bullish statement coming from you, sir, given your name. I mean, I would, you would hope so. You would hope so. I think the issue, I think, that comes into play is it's very hard to know how somebody's going to be 5, 10, 15 years down the line when the shit hits the fan, right? I mean, okay, they are sweet as pie now. What are they going to be like in the future? What are they going to be like if you lose your job, if something whatever, right? It's very hard to predict the future. But yeah, I mean, in principle, I agree. I mean, yeah, if you choose the right person, it should be great. It should, or at least it shouldn't be that difficult. Must be Mazzy says trad cons are far too idealistic for the times. True. JBB, prime rib for breakfast. It's the king of all meals. Good idea. Sounds good. And marriage causes divorce. You're right. I don't read psychology journals because it's so infused with feminism and woke equalism. Okay, fine. Yeah, all right. Comments in the chat. Anything else that you want to say? Anything else that you want us to discuss? Put it in there. Let's watch a bit more of this. See what they have to say.
But then again, I lost my virginity to a virgin as well.
Or imagine if they were really experienced and they were an awesome way and you guys also had a connection. That would also be really fun.
Or if they're a man, they might be thinking about other women for the rest of your relationship.
I don't think men stop thinking about other women just because they get married. I really doubt that.
We'll do that no matter what.
No, men's minds are rather undisciplined. You are right. That is true. But they don't have other experiences or pair bonds, especially for young women. With pair bonds are a real thing to compare that to. But look, I will go back to what I said. Sex is a very powerful thing. We all agree with that, right? Yeah. And I think you have
a tool, one might even say.
Yeah. It can be used. It could be abused. It could be, but in its ideal, which I fully acknowledge, it's very, very hard to do. Very hard, very difficult. But should be a goal that I would like to see more people at least talk about in a non-judgmental way that is worth aspiring to. And it's not impossible. It's not impossible.
What's he talking about there? Virginity before marriage?
It's not popular, but it's not impossible.
Okay. Did you have a response, Aaron, or I thought someone over here had a...
I don't think so. I think I had something to say about
it. Oh, did you have... Yeah, sorry, did you have more?
Did any... If you could wipe the slate, I know this is hypothetical, if that's okay?
But I remember what I was saying. You were saying that, like, oh, if you only have one partner, you're not going to think about other people. But I actually feel like that might make you wonder even more. Yeah. You'll be seeing all these girls online, you'll be watching porn, you'll be thinking about all these other things, and it's like all you have is one person. And, like, I don't know, I feel like that would kind of open up a lot of curiosity.
Yeah, that would drive me crazy. I would, like, always be wondering what I was missing and, like, did I miss out on something good because I was holding out for something that maybe turned out not to be what I thought it was.
Yes, and that I think is a very good point. And we covered this the other day. If you remember, I was going through some videos. There was some like trad wife, trad women, and one of them was married and she'd waited until marriage. And there was just something about the way that she came across, which made it seem like maybe she wasn't that happy. She'd wait until marriage before having sex. It seemed like, I wasn't getting like super, super happy vibes from her, put it that way. The problem with the fantasy, the male fantasy of just like, well, I'm just going to find this girl who's a virgin, or she's super inexperienced, and so she's not going to have any points of comparison, and then we're going to stay together forever because I'm the only person she knows, and blah, blah, blah. It sounds good in theory, but the difficulty is then you get FOMO, all right? FOMO then comes into play, and then she's thinking, shit, I didn't experience any of that stuff, and all of my friends were having fun, and I was married to this guy for 5 years. And I was married to this dude for 5 years, and and now it's got a bit stale. And look at all that time I wasted, and I could have been out there partying and having fun, and maybe it would have been better, and maybe I chose the wrong guy, and blah 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 blah. And you know, Pearl will often say, you know, there's many examples of guys who married virgins, and then these women go on to cheat or to leave them or whatever. So there are no guarantees in any of this, right? It sounds like a good strategy, and remember, guys are very logical. Guys will go for the thing that seems to make the most logical sense. Right, okay, this is a good strategy, so I'm going to go for that. It doesn't mean that it actually works in the real world, because the real world, at least as far as this is concerned, is driven by emotion. It's not driven by logic. It's driven by feels. And particularly, of course, when we're bringing women into the equation. Don DeMarco says, curious, Troy, if you saw Rich Cooper's chat with Sovereign Bra a few days ago. I actually didn't. I should probably watch that. Was it good? What was it like? How would you describe it? I probably should watch it just for, you know, professional purposes, but I didn't get around to it, so let me know. Lila Willow, what I don't understand, why shaming trad wives is standard, especially by women such as those. Okay. And then Sergio says, notice that it's always keep it in your pants, not keep your legs together. Yes, exactly. So it's always the guys. It's always men who are blamed for the evils of hookup culture, but not the women. And obviously, it takes two to tango. And obviously, women are sexual beings, arguably more so than men. And they have an equal, if not bigger, part to play in this, particularly as most guys, or a majority of guys anyway, aren't engaging in hookup culture anyway, right? So yeah, absolutely. Men are shamed for having a lot of women, but women are praised for it, says Laya Willow. That's interesting you say that, because isn't it typically the other way around? Isn't it typically that men get praised for, you know, being a Jack the Lad and having lots of women, and women get shamed for sleeping around? Unless, in what context are you talking? Like, there's just a complete inversion of that. Are you saying in the modern sphere there's just this complete inversion of that, where actually women are, you know, sort of... Oh, are you talking about a trad wife who maybe she wasn't a virgin, and then she converted, and now she's a born-again virgin, whereas the guy is supposed to remain a virgin? Is that the kind of thing? Maybe you're talking about that. Right. After Creed 4 says, do you, High Value Man, believe is self-restraint? I make great money, and I'm an attractive guy, and I'm not infused with the desire to sleep with random women. Well, look, I think you can do what you want to do. I don't think... I would agree that I don't think being a high-value man is defined by the number of women you sleep with, right? I think that's a fairly shallow goal to have, okay? So I would agree with that. But it's down to your personal proclivity, right? If you don't want to, because you've got other stuff going on, you're like, listen, that's not my interest, you know, I'm working on my stuff, I've got other things going on. That's fine. Do you, right? But at the same time, I think that it will be hard to be considered a truly high-value man if you are not desired by women at all in some capacity. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think what the high-value man then chooses to do with that is a different thing. But I think if a man is truly high value, and look, we get into the weeds about defining what that means, but if we're looking at a generally socially accepted view of what a high value guy is, I think that guy is also going to be desired by women. Now, he may not choose to sleep with them. He may choose to be very chaste. He may choose to be celibate. That's up to him. But the desire should be there. Otherwise, what is it that's missing in his value that these women are not seeing? Right. Too much you go, girl. Sergio says, yep. Don DeMarco, I would say Rich was open-minded, but also called out where the Christ pill doesn't serve men well, as he's not a Christian. Balanced convo. Okay, cool. Did he push back on... Because I think that the biggest problem for me with the Christ pill, apart from the fact that I'm also not a practicing Christian, although I was brought up as a Christian, but I'm not a practicing Christian by any means. The biggest problem for me is it doesn't seem to offer any real solutions, you know? aside from, okay, well, let's lobby governments and try and change the laws. Well, good luck with that. Or let's all just trust in God. Well, like, not trying to be offensive to anybody here, but good luck with that as well, because there are plenty of guys who are devout who have been screwed over and left in the gutter as far as marriage is concerned. So yeah, I mean, real tangible, this is the answer type stuff I've yet to see from their side. Whereas, say what you want about Fresh and Fit, say what you want about Myron, there are genuine prescriptions there for what you can do to live a better life, to get better results out of life, whether it's the case that you want a long-term relationship, you want a marriage ultimately, or if you just want to play the field, right? There are actual strategies there. Now, these guys will berate it and say, well, it's all just like evil and degenerate and all that stuff. But, until they start offering real solutions that are actually actionable, it's all kind of stuff and noise.
Yeah, looking around, really. I can't say that I think I'm missing much, to be honest. Not around this table. I'm just saying. No, not around this table. I just say the country. No, I just in general. Not around this table. What am I missing? I have and by the way,
is he missing anything?
Yeah, what?
Aaron, is he missing?
I mean, if you're saying that she's like the best person, then no.
Not every day is amazing, but
well, obviously,
I think you're missing out on some good threesomes. Yeah, that's all I'm gonna say.
Okay. If that is the compelling argument, then
I don't know why that's not working.
Look, everything in life is a choice. I get to have a soulmate that I get to go on an adventure with, and a beautiful daughter, and you get to have orgies.
You can still have a soulmate and a beautiful family and do porn.
So, Molly, I don't think you're right. And if it works for you, then you will definitely defy the odds.
No, I think it does work. I think it can be proven that you can.
I know for a fact it works. I have friends with kids and like friends who are in relationships, getting married, and they're very prominent, doing porn, fucking other people, having orgies.
Let me tell you
all that jazz.
Yeah, let me.
Oh, Jesus Christ. I mean, this is where, I don't know, man. I mean, like, I think even me, right, as degenerate or whatever as I am, I think when you're bringing kids into the equation and then you're talking about this stuff, that's a bit like, that doesn't sit right with me. I can't see that being sustainable. I can't see that working very well. I can't see that being particularly great for the kids. It sounds like a clusterfuck, to be honest. And it also, to be quite frank, it sounds like a fucking lot of effort. Like, I don't want to be, and I think especially as I get older, I don't want to be in a position where I'm in a relationship, and relationships, even a ostensibly monogamous relationship, brings its own challenges. Okay, you're dealing with another human being, you're taking on their problems, their moods, and there's lots of cogs involved with that. When you're also talking about being in some sort of poly-type situation where there's people coming in and out like a revolving door, and there's children involved as well, the whole thing just sounds like a complete nightmare and a recipe for disaster. I just can't see that working. Looking at these comments again, hot girl summer culture, yes. Restraint. So Sergio says restraint is fine, only if you don't expect a prize or a medal for it. Fine. So Alan Creed 4 says, I just don't understand why restraint for both men and women isn't celebrated. Well, I think it's not celebrated because why should it be celebrated? Because if you want something and you're able to get that thing, then why is it such a virtue to not get that thing? Now, unless you're bringing the religious argument into it. Okay, if you putting the religious argument to one side, if you really want something, like I really want a bottle of water, and then I'm able to get a bottle of water, why is choosing not to get a bottle of water, why should I be praised for that? Because I actually wanted the bottle of water, okay? Now, the reality is, and I said this on Twitter, and Chase, again, called me a degenerate, the reality is most men want to have sexual experience. They would probably like to have a variety of sexual experiences with different women, certainly at least before they settle down, before they get married, okay? Why should restraint be praised? I mean, some of the most powerful, strongest, like alpha celebrated men in the world have had multiple wives. They've had multiple mistresses, multiple affairs. Why? Because they could, okay? Because they were able to. Most men are not able to. If you're able to do something and you want it, then why is it a virtue to not have it? All right? Unless you're going to appeal to the religious argument, but not everyone is religious, or not everybody has such an Old Testament fire and brimstone view of Christianity as some of these other guys do. So if you take that aside, if you put that aside, why should I be praised for not doing something I actually wanted to do? Surely that's just stupid, right? You see what I mean? Rich specifically pushed back on things like high body count women being accepted by men who simply can't trust God to work out, but this caused disagreement, but Rich stuck it out. Yeah, fine, yeah, okay. I need to watch that. If Charlie gets divorced, it's over for tradcons. Well, I mean, yeah, but it won't be, because they'll just say, well, I mean, it's like, I mean, Steven Crowder got divorced, didn't he? I mean, they'll just say, well, it was that particular circumstance, it was that particular woman, it was, you know, there'll be reasons, but they'll say, in general, this shouldn't put you off the path of righteousness. I mean, that's all that will happen. Sergio says, why am I not celebrated for not having a Ferrari? Marriage causes divorce. I think this is a list of people who are who have been, I don't know, who've had multiple women in their lives, I suppose. So he says, win Donald Trump, win Tiger Woods, win Bill Clinton, win Arnold Schwarzenegger. Again, you know, some of the most famous celebrated dudes. So the trads will try and frame this as weakness. They'll say, no, you are a weak man because you are unable to control your baser instincts, okay? But actually, that's a nonsense, because when you look at it, some of the most powerful, arguably strongest, whether that's physically or in terms of resources or in terms of power, some of the strongest men who've ever existed on the planet have had multiple women in their lives, okay? So it's not about being this weak, simpy kind of individual. Actually, it's a sign of strength to be able to command the attention of these different women. Now, if you want to forego that, that's fine. But again, it's not like these guys are doing something that they don't want to do, okay? It's not that Drake or, well, I don't know anything about his personal life, but it's not about if some big celebrity is offered all these opportunities for sex. He's like, oh, I really don't want to have sex with all these really attractive women, but I'm so weak, I'm going to do it anyway. He wants to do it, and he's able to do it. So why is restraint something to be praised? I don't really, logically, I don't get it, unless you're appealing to the religious argument, which is it's a different thing, and we're not necessarily going to agree on that. So Alter Creed says, you are celebrated for having a Ferrari. People love those cars and respect people who have it. Okay. Troy, I don't think you really believe that, because if you want to leave your family and start a new one, and you don't, that's good. And people should be happy that you don't. Okay, well, look, okay, right. But now you're bringing family into it, which I'm not saying it's good for somebody to just leave their family and go off with somebody else. I'm not saying that's good. I thought we were just talking about promiscuity here. There are plenty of things that people want to do because they don't because it's immoral or rude. Right, but is it immoral? And this is the key thing, really, with this whole fucking debate. Is it immoral to have sex with people? I don't think it is, as long as it's consensual and as long as you're respectful and you're doing it in the right way. I just don't think it is immoral, right? You could say it's misguided. You could say sometimes, maybe somebody puts too much energy into that and not enough energy into other things. Maybe sometimes you think, in hindsight, was that really the person I wanted to spend time with in that way? And, whatever. Yeah, fine. Is it immoral? As I say, I think as long as you guys are both on the same page, I don't believe it's immoral. Now, Chase would disagree. Charlie Kirk would probably disagree. All of these clowns would disagree. But I mean, that's because they're coming at this from a very, very specific and, let's face it, very antiquated viewpoint that doesn't really reflect the majority of society. The majority of people in society aren't sitting around thinking, sex is immoral. The majority of people in society are just like, yeah, people have sex, usually date around for a bit in their 20s, probably meet someone late 20s, early 30s, settle down, Like, it's not this fucking degenerate thing that people seem to imagine online. It's only in this weird, like, little echo chamber of slightly crazy people online that this is an issue at all. Most people don't give a damn. As I say, there are far bigger issues in society to deal with than people having sex outside of marriage, or people having, having a bunch of relationships before they settle down or whatever. It doesn't even scrape, if you look at social problems in London, it doesn't even scrape the top 100. Like, it doesn't nobody gives a fuck, okay? There are far more pressing problems that we have in this country and in the United States of America and across the world than people shagging around a little bit, okay? It's so, like the fact that we're even having to have a 2-hour live stream about this, in a way, is fucking ridiculous, because it in the big scheme of things, it's such a non-issue. That, not to say, yes, of course, you can get into toxic relationships. Yes, bad things can happen. But in general, as I say, if you're doing things right, you're respectful, everything's consensual, you're treating people well, you're trying to leave people better than you, all that stuff, it's not such a big deal. So, what else do people say? Laya says, I think restraint for men is different than restraint for women. Women biologically still have a chemical reaction to having sex. It has a mental effect. And also, men have 17 times the amount of testosterone that women do as well. And men are very, very much more visual creatures than women are. So, the impetus in men is significantly stronger than women. I'm not saying it doesn't exist in women, but it is stronger in men. Sergio, yeah, we do respect guys who get laid. Win John Major. Jesus Christ. Win King Charles. Men don't get surges of oxytocin release as women do during sex. Well, they do a bit, actually. They do a bit at the end. I mean, maybe not as much as women, but they do. I mean, they do feel that bonding thing to some extent. After Creed says, fair point. Maybe not like, but respect. Marriage causes divorce. Princess Diana being a virgin didn't really help. Was she a virgin? Maybe she was. I'd forgotten about that. I think most of the Queen's kids are divorced. Laya says, there's a reason in our society today why women aren't settling down. They keep searching for this perfect man that doesn't exist. So they sleep with all these men into their 40s. Yes, I think that's true. And again, this is where the issue of so much choice comes into play, right? This multitude of options that people have is problematic, and it is making monogamy difficult, okay? But again, I still don't believe that the act of sex in itself is immoral, okay? It may not be the best life choice for a woman to be sleeping around until she's 40, and then she thinks, oh shit, actually I should have settled down. Like, that's arguably not a good life choice, but I wouldn't say that it's immoral for her to have done that. Sergio, our generation is probably screwed in this way, meaning we probably won't get our one person or soulmate. If you believe in that. And I, like I said, I in many ways I don't, but in a strange way I also do. I kind of hold both beliefs simultaneously at the same time, which is illogical, but we are illogical creatures. Even men can be illogical creatures. I agree. And then Laya says sex is not a bad thing. Indeed. So please subscribe to the channel, Laya, if you haven't already. And everybody else here, really. I mean, it's great that you guys are on here. We want to get 19 likes on this video, please, as well. Thanks everybody for coming in. Thanks everybody for supporting. Alter Creed, I think the whole virginity thing is weird. If my daughter's boyfriend and I can't read that because it's not. I need to moving up the screen a little bit. I think the whole virginity thing is weird. If my daughter's boyfriend said he likes that she's a virgin, we have a problem. Yeah. Yeah. It's weird, isn't it? Because, from the sort of the internet bros perspective, it's like, yeah, man, I want to find a virgin. If you're a father, you've got a daughter, suddenly, that's sounding a bit weird, isn't it? I do get that. I do get that. So yeah, it's I just to be completely clear, this whole virgin thing that people talk about, I've never I've never advocated for that. It's not something that I'm particularly. I mean, I think like most people, you know, I tend to have a don't ask, don't tell policy as far as body count's concerned. It's something I'm certainly not something I'm discussing on the first date or anything like that. If it seemed to me that a woman, you know, had partied a lot in her youth, let's say, I might be somewhat less. I would probably be somewhat less inclined to get into something very serious with her. Yes, but equally, you know, this whole insistence on virgins and things like that, it does seem a little bit weird to me. It's not something that I've ever really talked about or advocated. It you know, yeah, it is what it is. Liar, come on a live call show with Troy. We need a female perspective. Liar says, oh man, that would be something. Pearl does a fine job for me. Liar, drop me an email, troy@realtroyfrancis.com. Okay? And I don't know what your situation is. I don't know if you're dating, maybe you're married, I don't know, you know, whatever. But it would be great to get you on a call because we really want to get some women on to the show. We had a woman last week. We're talking to her about her dating situation. So maybe we can do something similar. So drop me an email, troy@realtroyfrancis.com. And yeah, we can have a chat. Maybe we can get something sorted out because it'd be great to get you on here, have a conversation. And really anybody else in the chat as well, woman or man. If you're a guy, what we're really looking for, to be honest, is people with specific dating problems or specific relationship situations that, you know, they're in or they want advice on or they want some clarity on. So I can try and help you. It's not meant to be you just come on and we have a chat about, you know, the red pill or something like that. It's more meant to be trying to do it like a practical advice Q&A session. But if there's anybody on here, you know, Liar or anybody else, drop me an email, troy@realtroyfrancis.com, and we can have a chat and maybe get you on the show. That'd be good. Thelma student, it is the best life choice for men in the red pill era. What's that? The backlash I think I'm not prepared for. It's moral to have a healthy sex life. It's energy. We can do whatever we want. Pair bonding is not a fact. It's only a theory. Well, yeah, perhaps. But I think I think it happens. All right. In my experience, it still happens. I mean, whether it's a theory or it's proven or scientifically disproven or whatever, I think it's something that occurs. It's certainly something that's happened to me. And it's something that has caused me, you know, a lot of emotional, well, joy, but also upheaval as well. And I know on the part of, you know, like the other parties involved, the same thing. So I think we can argue the toss about, is it an actual scientific phenomenon or is it not? But I think it is something that happens and something we have to, you know, we have to factor in. Liar says, I'll think about it. Well, drop me an email, troy@realtroyfrancis.com, and we can have a chat. Thelma says, some women are for the streets, some are for wife. Hi, any Nancy Griffith singer fans? Don't know what that means. Liar, if you have a man, tell us how you got him. Thelma, religion makes sex transactional. That is, that's an interesting point. And also you end up getting, you know, women married to guys they're not really attracted to, and that's not a great situation for anybody anyway. Marriage causes divorce. Lifelong pair bonding is just in a few species of bird, not humans. I think swans are one of them, aren't they? All right, let's have a look at a bit more of this.
I'll tell you a true story about a young lady who went to high school near here. When she started to get 15, her mom was a porn actress, and all the other boys would constantly tease her and bully her because they would show pictures of her naked mother, and it really, really hurt her. Do you ever wonder that for your future kids, they might have to be confronted by that or teased or ridiculed by your line of work?
I know they will be confronted with it, but there's so many ways to answer the question. But honestly, for one, I don't really care because to me, the way that I look at it and the way that I'm gonna raise my kids, says a hell of a lot more to me about the child who is instigating negative emotions in my child because of what I do for work rather than my child minding their own business.
Do you ever worry that you might be producing content that could be seriously damaging other people?
No.
And that's fair enough, I think. There's this big sort of thing about like how harmful is porn. I don't think porn is good for society. I don't think it's quite the nuclear level threat that some of these guys make out. Although, and maybe he mentions it now, but Charlie does go on to talk about a book which sounds very interesting about the effects of porn on the brain that I may well get. So I'll reserve judgment on that. But I think... Again, I just, my gut feeling is in the big scheme of things, some videos of people having sex and some people fapping to it. It's. I'm not saying it's great. I'm not saying I approve of it. I'm not saying it's, it's the nicest facet of society. I also don't think it's the biggest problem that's facing society at all. Again, if you look at the social problems happening in London, in the UK, or even in the United States of America, I don't think it scrapes the top 100, to be honest. It's certainly... Fentanyl is far above porn, I would suggest. But anyway, let's see what he says now. He might mention this book, and I want to maybe get hold of it.
Charlie, you were about to say a little earlier, if you could wipe the slate clean,
sure.
what was the question you had there?
If you could wipe the slate, theoretically, and re-virginize yourself, and would you? Could you go back to the person you were as a virgin?
No. I love who I am now. I feel like everything happened for a reason, and I don't know. I love who I am now.
Would I take back the people that I did? Probably, but
fair.
Yeah, like you said, it made like who I am. So no.
I think I would definitely do some things different. It's kind of ironic because this probably isn't the answer you're looking for. But if I was to start again, I'd probably lose my virginity for porn and do more porn things earlier on.
Good girl. Good girl. I mean, like, she's out there, man. She's recognized the value of her sexuality. Not that, well, she wanted to capitalize on it. She regrets not capitalizing. I mean, it's funny, isn't it? So what would you regret on your deathbed? I wish I'd done more porn. I really wish I'd have got into porn earlier. That would have been great.
But yeah, that's just me. But there's definitely some body counts that I do regret, just one night stands and all them lame things. But
What about they did you regret just the
one night stands?
They weren't worthy, or
just like bad time, or like weird people, or like you get too drunk and you get in a situation you can't really get out of and stuff like that. But in terms of then all the stuff I do for work, I love that because that's like an art form for me. So yeah,
an art form.
I want to circle back to something you said earlier, where you said that Molly's children, hypothetical future children, could be confronted with like her work, right? Yes. And I think that is not. I don't think there's any career path that precludes your child from potentially being confronted with what their parents say. Like, I know that you're involved in like political work and stuff like that. Do you ever worry that things that you've said online or done or political actions that you've taken might be like your daughter might be confronted by them by somebody who has like somebody's kid who has an opposing point of view? I feel like that would like. Do you ever worry about something like that?
Oh, she'll definitely.
Yeah, Erin drops a bomb there. That's quite a good point, isn't it? Actually, she counters that quite well. Let's see what he says.
Be confronted. It's not videos of me having sex online.
No.
Thank God.
But you said like tons of controversial things, right? So do you expect that any of that could like have negative effects on her well-being or like how she's raised or anything like that? Or do you think, and I say controversial like neutrally and descriptively, like objectively, if your views are polarizing, that's going to incite conversation, debate, discussion. Do you ever worry about like kids confronting her with these things and her not being prepared to know how to answer them, or maybe feeling like bullied or embarrassed?
Yeah, I mean that's a factor of being in public life for sure. Yeah, and hopefully I build her strong up enough to be able to endure that. Right?
Then I bet Molly thinks probably the same thing, right? Like just that sort of resiliency.
Do you think public political commentary is morally on the same plane as filming yourself having sex?
Yes. Yeah. I think people, if anything, it could sometimes be worse depending on what the person is talking about.
Yeah.
I
agree.
Oh, worse. Okay.
I think politics is definitely heavier than porn.
You think politics does more damage than porn?
For the actual life,
100%.
like the world, yes.
They're probably right, aren't they? I mean, let's be honest. They're probably fucking... I mean, they are right, really. Come on. I mean, like, however much you hate porn, and I know everybody, is... anti-porn most people are anti-porn in this space because it's like no fap and all that kind of stuff, but come on, man. I mean, they're kind of right, aren't they? They kind of got a point. Although I'm not saying that Charlie Kirk's rhetoric is worse than porn, and like how do you even fucking measure that anyway? It's ridiculous. But I think overall, yes, politics, geopolitics, however you want to define that, has certainly been more damaging for the world than a bunch of people having sex on camera and then selling it on the internet.
Yeah.
Her having sex with other men is not disrupting the world.
Well, not just sex, but filming it and disseminating
I
it.
think it
that's
really
not
helps
putting
the
the world
world
into
because it
shambles.
gives the men a release of their semen that they can get girls to fuck them. So they go jerk off to me.
Lonely boys, we're helping them. So
Also, I feel like it's their choice to watch. So it's, it's not.
Well, I was also going to ask how kids would know that someone's mom is a porn star. How do they know that?
Internet's forever. Can you scoot your mic
Yeah,
out,
but
but
why are, I mean, obviously kids, what?
It would be a parental failure, basically. Like the parents are not monitoring their child's consumption of media.
Yeah, I don't really agree with that, Pixie. I think I think other kids would find it. I don't think it would necessarily be a parental failure. I think other kids would find it, and they would, it would come more through that, even if the parents themselves were very careful.
good enough, and therefore they find porn.
Donated $200. Charlie was right. I was ADI high.
Oh, God.
My sprinkler goes like this.
Oh my god.
They give $200 for this?
I got some interesting. Okay, all right. Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, where were we?
I finished my thought.
Okay.
Do any of you think that a generation of young men, and having struggled with porn myself, totally acknowledge it, so no one...
Have you jerked off to me?
Oh my God, Molly.
He's been good.
I've never heard of you before, so yeah.
That's the answer, because your wife is watching.
That's true. I've never heard of you before. Yeah.
That was kind of out of pocket.
Bit awkward, a little bit awkward. She tried for the joke there, and it kind of like slightly awkward. But I mean, the good thing is that he acknowledged again. I mean, props to Charlie Kirk. I can't believe I'm fucking saying this, but I mean, he acknowledges that he had an issue with porn. Great. I mean, not great that he had an issue with porn, but the fact that he owns it, he acknowledges it. He volunteered it himself. It didn't have to get prized out of him. He volunteered it himself, and he said, "Listen, I've had an issue with this." I think that again is commendable, right? Because he's not trying. Well, in this excerpt anyway, he's not trying to show this sort of holier than thou, superior image of himself. He is showing himself as somebody who's had failings. He's dealt with what he would describe as failings. He's dealt with them, and he's moved on, and I think, again, I think it's very good that he was able to say that. He felt comfortable to say that.
Molly. Okay, so Charlie Kirk, you're a political commentator.
Yeah. Can I say one thing?
Absolutely,
now?
Go ahead.
Molly, I have sympathy for you. I do. You're trying to cope with the suppression of your soul. And filming yourself having sex with other men and filming it is not the highest and best use of the talents that God gave you. It's not.
I think that is a talent God gave me.
Well, it's not the highest and best use, and it's not a talent because, as I said, in my belief, that should be saved in a sacred domain. We're not going to agree on that, but I hope you change course. I think you'll be happier and more joyful, and I pray you don't have to suffer too much to realize that.
Well, in my belief, this is my most happy and joyful.
So,
do you know what? I think I agree. I agree with Charlie. I think he's right. I don't think it is her highest calling. How can it be, right? And deep down, I think, she's saying, no, I think it is. This is the happiest moment of my life. Deep down, banging people on camera. I mean, look, we can joke about it. I've joked about it before, and I've said, yeah, it's the greatest art form because it's the art form that creates the most interaction with the audience, physically than any other art form that you've got. The reality is, having sex with people on camera, there are better uses there are better things that she could be doing, and I think she knows that, and I think that she is coping, and I think that he is right. Having said that, whether to say that she's immoral for doing it, and he doesn't, to be fair, but for other people, saying that she's immoral for doing it, I don't agree with that. I think she's got a right to do it. I think she's got a right to do whatever she wants to do, and then if there are consequences from that, she then has to deal with those, and that's her business. I also don't think that she should be compelled to repent and go into some kind of super monogamous relationship and become a trad wife and start baking cakes on the internet if she doesn't want to do that. I think, she can do whatever she wants, but I do think, actually, that what Charlie said then was correct. I do think that on some level she knows, really, this is not actually what she was put on this earth to do. It's not really the best use of her talents. And I think that he was empathetic when he said that. And again, I wasn't really prepared to like this guy coming into this, but, some of the stuff he said, I think you got to hand it to him. He's been pretty open-handed and pretty honest and almost vulnerable and most importantly, non-judgmental. I mean, he could have come on here and called her an evil 304, and you're going to, accept the word of the Lord, otherwise you're going to burn in eternal damnation, all that kind of stuff. And he hasn't done that, which I think is to his credit, and I think spreads the message of the Christ pill a lot better than some of these other people.
So if Molly made a huge pivot and started doing politics, would you support her political runs and bids?
It's not a matter of politics. I mean, I want what's best for all of you here, and I don't think filming yourself having sex with men is the highest and best use of your talents. In fact, I think it personally has done a lot of damage to a lot of young men. And don't take my word for it. Look, you can read the book by Gary Wilson, Your Brain on Porn. It is the #1 drug in America right now, and it impacts men.
It definitely isn't healthy.
Okay, so it's not healthy, so we agree. So let me ask a moral question. What do you guys think of drug dealers that push fentanyl? Good people or not good people?
Okay, so a couple of comments here. So Lawyer says, I really enjoyed listening to Charlie Kirk in this episode. The ladies told him he was the most respectful towards them. I think that's true. Pearl accuses him of simping later. I don't think we're going to get to the abortion part because I think we're going to end this quite soon. So there's a bit later he talks about abortion and he is kind of pandering to them a bit. But I think in general, in this segment, you know, he's been pretty respectful. I mean, I say respectful. I mean, like, I think he's being restrained in the sense that, you know, he obviously disapproves of what she's doing. Right, he's obviously not on board with this. He's probably not on. He's not on board with the political views of Pixie and Erin. You know, he's probably not really on board with any of them here. But he's having a civil conversation, all right, and he's not berating them, and he's not shaming them. He's just saying, look, this is how I think it should be. And I think, you know, and again, I mean, I suppose you could say, well, he's pandering because they're women. He's pandering to them, and if it was a bunch of men. And it was a bunch of degenerate men, he'd be a lot harsher with them. And that might be true. So there might be, so you could argue that. You could say, well, look, he's pandering to them because he wants to keep the women on side. Okay, fine. But again, I think, look, if you're trying to sell Christianity, all right, and he's trying to sell it to women and to men, I don't think berating people and calling them evil degenerates is the right way to go about it, all right? And I think the tone that he has here, and he's owning his own mistakes, he's owning his own failures, I think is pretty decent. So Sergio says Charlie is right, but for the wrong reasons. Yeah, expand on that because he then says God may be not real, but your mental health is. So are you saying? Yeah, I'm not coming from the same place that he is with this, okay? Because again, obviously he's coming at this from a trad Christian, politically conservative viewpoint, right? I'm not coming from exactly that space, but I do think overall what he said to her is correct. I just don't think it as degenerate as I am, I just don't think it can be the right thing to say to a young woman, yeah, porn, fucking great. You know, that's the best possible use of your short existence on this planet. I just don't think that's, you know, like, I don't think any sane person can say that, okay? At the same time, I don't judge her. If she wants to do it, she can do it. That's fine. I don't judge her or anything like that. But it's like, you know, well, I've said it already. You know, you get where I'm coming from with this. Sergio says porn damages men and women differently. Molly was called a demon by the chat. He turned to her and said, I don't believe you're a demon. I thought that was kind. Yes, I saw that part. Yes, you're right. Somebody called her a demon and he said, I don't think you're a demon. And, you know, and he's right. She's not a fucking demon. She's a young woman. She's made a decision to monetize her sexuality, as many young women do. We might not like that. We might not like the societal consequences of that. She's not a fucking demon. She's not, you know, demonically possessed or anything like that. She's somebody who, you know, she may well come to regret that decision in time, you know, etc., etc. But, you know, like, again, I just don't think the way to sell Christianity is to start yelling at her and telling her to repent and start, you know, like in is it Game of Thrones when, you know, the shame bit. Sergio says he's a white knight. Well, I don't know. I don't think he's a white knight. I think he's being restrained, is what he's doing, because I think he very clearly disapproves of all of this shit. To be quite honest, I think it's pretty fucking obvious. You know, he, like, privately he thinks, well, this, you know, fucking hell, this girl is on the wrong track. He doesn't agree politically with the other, you know, with Pixie and Erin. You know, he doesn't seem to have much in common. I mean, I don't think there's any conservative women on this panel, as far as I know, as far as I can see. So I don't think he's on board with any of them. I don't think he's white knighting. I think what he's doing is trying to put forward a contrary viewpoint, but doing it in a way that is measured and is not disrespectful to them in the way that's going to alienate them. So he's trying to promote dialogue as opposed to just being a complete arse about it, I think, anyway, in this segment. I mean, then, as we said, he gets the abortion bit, and he is kind of pandering a little bit, but that's a different bit. He's that kind of simpy, though. At least he comes across as... Does he? He come across as simpy? I don't know. Well, I just don't think she's I just don't think she's a demon. I don't think anyone's a demon because I think that's a supernatural fucking made up entity, right? She's a human being who's made some choices that a lot of people don't like. Well, okay, fuck it. So have I. I mean, I don't think she's a demon. I just think it is what it is, right? And they can talk it out, and I think that's just what he's trying to do. He's not sitting there going, "Oh my God, you go, girl. Oh, you're so amazing. You're still beautiful the way you are." He obviously disapproves, right? We get where he's coming from. I just think he's doing it in a decent way. So Laia says, honestly, I have 2 little boys I'm raising. I would like to learn on how to raise them in this world. That's why all this interests me. Well, call into the show then. Call into the show and we can talk about it. That would be a good topic for discussion. So again, email me troy@realtroyfrancis.com. I think we're going to probably call this to a close. Sergio says, she's not a demon, she's a 304. Okay, look, we can all agree on that. Okay. She's not a demon, she's just a 304. All right? Let's not get carried away here. It doesn't matter what she is. If you don't like her porn, don't watch it. Well, I mean, absolutely. I mean, it depends. I mean, what your viewpoint is. People say, well, no, porn is the downfall of the West and all of this kind of thing. I don't actually think it's as serious as that. I don't think porn is a good thing. And they do go on to talk about this actually a bit later. And Charlie's sort of talking about like, well, wouldn't it be good at least to regulate the age of people who can access porn to 18? I think he says. I thought it was that anyway, but I guess on the internet anybody can access it probably. And I think that's a fair point. I think complete prohibition of anything tends to backfire. It tends not to work because you're going contrary to human nature. I mean, that was the problem with prohibition in America of alcohol because people like to get fucked basically. So, you ban anything and it tends to make it more attractive and people will find other ways to get it. So, yeah. Okay, I think we're going to call this to a close because we've been on for 2 hours now, and it goes off into some different directions. It was an interesting show, but I think the bits that we did see, I think, were useful to talk about because it does dovetail quite nicely into this whole fucking Christ pill versus trad versus red pill thing that's going on at the moment. And as I say, I mean, I think he acquitted himself pretty well, actually. I think if more of them were like him in this clip. And less like, the sovereign bras of this world who are just yelling at everybody the whole time. I think that they may get a bit more traction, right? I think you've got to if you've got somebody of a completely opposing viewpoint, I think you've got to kind of meet them halfway a little bit if you want to get any sort of dialogue going. Otherwise, you're just yelling at them and they're just going to go, well, fuck you. And then nobody gets anywhere, all right? Marriage causes divorce. Every dude calling her demonic is secretly subscribing to her OnlyFans and hate fapping. Exactly. I mean, look, fuck it out. We're all hypocrites here, guys. We're all fucking human. We're just animals. It is what it is. Enjoy the decline. Go to Vegas. Have a party. Stay at the Cosmopolitan. Have a good time. We're here for a short time. We're here for a good time, not a long time. Put it that way. On that note, tomorrow we're going to be, I think, having a conversation with James Tusk, and we're going to be talking more about actionable strategies for how you can improve your dating life. So make sure that you tune in for that. It will be at 2 p.m. EST, which is, 9 a.m. In EST, and then 6 a.m. Pacific time. So it's early for you Californians, but you should get up because this is going to be a Riz-tastic special. And subscribe to the channel. Give me a like if you haven't already. Hit notifications. Put a comment beneath. Tell me what you think about this show. Was he simping? Is he a white knight? Is he just being a decent guy? Is he promoting the message of Christianity better than some of these other clowns? Let me know what you think. Fascinated to hear. And make sure that you subscribe to the channel, as I said. And I'll see you guys again very soon. Bye-bye.